Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is John Campea, and this is a kind of a special, very different kind of video than we normally do. This is a video that we're titling, How to YouTube. It's a terrible title for a video. I just couldn't think of a better one. So here's the background of this for those of you who may or may not know. So I have been a YouTuber for a number of years, and if we're going to define YouTuber as a content creator who happens to use YouTube as their platform of choice. So I guess in that sort of term, I guess I'm a YouTuber, and I've been able to do it professionally for a long time. Now, I want to say this right off the top. I am not the world's biggest expert on YouTube. I'm not the world's biggest expert on creating and growing YouTube channels. I am simply somebody who has been able to do this for a while, had a decent amount of success doing it. And I've taken 3 different YouTube channels and grown each of them to over 200,000 subscribers or more on different times. So I figured I at least have something to contribute to you guys as far as giving you some ideas, maybe a little bit of inspiration, some reality checks. We're going to do a lot of that today. I know that's not the fun part, but doing reality checks is also part of what we're doing here today. So what has happened is that I often get a lot of messages from people asking me about being a YouTuber and maybe starting a YouTube channel, how to develop your YouTube channel, the ideas of best practices, gear, software, equipment, all that sorts of stuff. So what I thought I would do is that we would do a special live stream here today, which is what we're going to do, where we are going to specifically talk about being a YouTuber, starting your YouTube, developing your YouTube, growing your YouTube, how to interact with your YouTube, all that kind of stuff from the best of my experience that I possibly can. And that's what we're going to do. Now, most of this video is really going to be taking whatever topics you guys want to talk about as it relates to being a YouTuber. Now, if you've got a specific question or issue you'd like us to discuss in being a YouTuber and stuff like that, go ahead and use the super chat feature in the live stream here, and we will address it before the end. So that's what we're mostly going to do, because I don't want to waste time talking about things that you guys aren't interested in. So we're going to really focus most of our video in talking about the specific questions and issues you guys want addressed, and I will do the best that I can to address those. And hello to everybody in the live chat who's here and participating in this. Good to have you here. And if you're watching this afterwards on replay, glad you're watching too. Now, before we get into taking your specific questions about YouTubing, I want to talk about some general principles, okay? I want to talk about the thing you have to accept about YouTubing first. I want to talk about several questions you need to ask yourself either prior to getting your YouTube going, or even if you've already started your YouTube channel, questions you need to ask yourself. And I want to talk about a couple of rules for success in YouTubing. These are just general philosophical things that I think will lay a good foundation for where we're going from here. So if you are all on board with that, let's get started, shall we? Okay, first thing I want to talk about here, and this is the unpopular thing, this is the reality check. It's an inconvenient truth, but it has to be said, okay? The first thing you've got to accept, if you're already doing a YouTube channel as a hobby or whatever, or if you're thinking about getting started, one of the first things you must accept is that 99% of you will not be able to make a career out of this. Now, I could be a snake oil salesman here and say, any one of you can make this a full-time career and blah, 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 and just for $9.99 a month, sign up for this, blah. But I got to be real with you guys. The reality is that most people who do YouTube do it as a hobby for fun and for personal enrichment and to have a good time and to contribute. The vast majority of you, notice I'm not saying 100%, I'm saying 99% of you. The vast majority of people who want to get involved in YouTube, you're not going to be able to make a career out of this. I'm just saying that so we have realistic expectations. If there is, 200 of you watching, maybe two of you can. If you still like to give it a shot, we're going to talk about some practices and things you do that might give you a shot at it, but I just want to be realistic. I don't want to be one of these fake guys who comes on here and says, any of you can do this. It's just going to happen if you just do these 5 simple steps. And I know that's what everybody's looking for. Everybody wants to know, what are the 3 steps I have to take so I can quit my job and do this full time? I need to be honest with you and I need to be realistic with you. It is very unlikely. Okay. Now, if you accept that as a truth as we start out, then at least you can have some realistic expectations, and knowing that you do want to give it a shot, you're at least mentally prepared to understand that there's going to be significant challenges to getting to the point that you're able to do it for a living. Now, I still think most of you guys are probably watching this video about, no, I don't care about doing it for a living. I just want to do it. I want to be good at it. I want to have fun doing it. This is what I want to make a really, enjoyable hobby of mine. Then this is for all of us. This is for all of us. So anyway, again, like I said, I just want to keep it real. I don't want to be fake. The reality is most people, you got to accept to start that 99% of you will not be able to do this for a living. Okay. Now, if we accept that and we understand that, we got that firmly planted in our head, let's move forward here. There are certain questions you need to ask. And this is particularly if you want to get started in YouTubing, but it also applies if you've already got a channel up and sort of running, okay? These, I think, are questions that I think apply to for all of us. Here we go. First of all, questions you may need to ask. Question number one is, why do I want to do a YouTube channel? That's an important question, and don't laugh. You may think that sounds obvious, but when I talk to a lot of YouTubers, when I go to either conventions or people online who message me to ask about things, when I ask them the question, why do you want to do a YouTube channel? The vast majority of people haven't actually formulated an answer for that for themselves. And there can be many different reasons about why you may want to do a YouTube channel, and they're all valid, but I think it's important that as an individual, you be able to identify for yourself, because it'll help steer you in the direction you should go. If you can answer the question for yourself, why do I want to do a YouTube channel? And they can be anything from personal expression. I know a lot of people who, whether they're vloggers or whatever, they just see doing YouTube kind of as a public digital diary. There's just a catharsis from being able to, I love, like when I started my movie blog, I just loved talking about movies. And so I just had a digital platform for me just to express my thoughts about movies. For me, when I first started the movie blog, one of the big things about me starting the movie blog was it was just for my own personal expression. That's a valid reason for doing a YouTube channel, but it's good for you to know what it is. Maybe another thing is you want to give contribution to the community. Let's say you're really into biking and you love riding bikes. You ride in bike groups every weekend. You go mountain trails, whatever, and you just feel like you want to contribute to the online bike enthusiasts, people who like to bike. You want to make sure there's content for them to get there too, because you learned some great things about cycling and now you want to contribute. That's an excellent reason to want to start a YouTube channel. So maybe you want it for personal expression. Maybe you want it to contribute to the community. A third option is because you want to connect with others. I mean, that was another one of my kind of purposes when I started my blog, the movie blog. It just gave me a new way to connect with other film fans that in the real life I would probably never meet, right? And just being able to start a dialogue and talk to some other people online about my passion, movies, was one of those things. And like, let's go back to the cycle. Say you're a big cyclist. You're really big into biking. Well, this gives you an opportunity to connect with other people around the world and just connect over your love of cycling. That's a great reason to create a YouTube channel. Another one, obviously, that a lot of people often have on their mind, but again, the 99% won't get there, but some people think, you know what? I bet I can make a career out of that. And there are those who have. And maybe, you've taken your love of cycling to a degree of like, you know what? I know a lot about cycling. And I think I can do a YouTube channel in such a way that, novice, intermediate, even experienced cyclists can learn a lot about what I have to share about cycling. And there are YouTube channels about cycling. I know this because I recently bought my own e-bike. And so I started looking up a lot of YouTube channels on cycling. And there are a lot of people who've been able to make a career about cycling, make career out of YouTubing about cycling and stuff like that. So, and by the way, these are not the only 4 reasons. There could be 30 or 40 other reasons. I just think that if you're thinking about starting a YouTube channel, because the answer to this question will help steer you in the right direction. If you're thinking about either starting a YouTube channel or you've already started a YouTube channel, I think it's good that you be able to sit down and understand for yourself, what is my motivation for having a YouTube channel? Why do I want to have a YouTube channel? Because the answer to that question will help steer you in the direction you should go as you move forward. So that's the first question I think you need to ask yourself. Why do I want a YouTube channel? The second question is this: what is my YouTube channel about? Now, I will say this. Go back to question one. Why do I want to start a YouTube channel? If your answer is A, personal expression, like just as a place to kind of be like a digital, publicly available to be seen diary or whatever, just a place to express your thoughts, then you know what? What is my YouTube channel about? Question two won't actually be all that important, because really you're just using it as a place to kind of express whatever your thoughts you're having about whatever is going on out there. So that's fine. That's why I said answering that first question will help steer you in direction. But for a lot of other people, what is my YouTube channel about? That, again, may sound like a very simple question, but I've seen so many people, and I actually have friends of mine who have tried to get going on YouTube, but they've never been able to narrow down and actually identify what is it my channel is supposed to be about. Because if you want to build a community of a YouTube channel, right? If you want to contribute to the community or connect with others or make a possible career or many, many other reasons, here's the thing. You can't make a video on Monday about what you thought about WrestleMania, and then a video on Tuesday about your favorite bike trail in Burbank, and then a video on Wednesday about your favorite hot dog restaurant, and then a video on Thursday about your new sneakers, and then a video on Friday. I mean, that's fine if you just want to use your YouTube channel as a place for personal expression. But if you want to develop any kind of a community for the reasons of contributing to a community or for connecting with others, you should narrow down and have a focus about what it is your YouTube channel is about. And it doesn't have to be super specific. Like if your YouTube channel, you want to make a YouTube channel about laptops, you don't only have to make a YouTube video about Alienware laptops, although you can if you want. The more specific your YouTube channel, the quicker you can probably build a community. But, at least my YouTube channel is about laptops. So that way, when there are other people on YouTube looking for stuff about laptops, they know that your YouTube channel is about this. They know if they want to get their, laptop discussion fix, they can come to your YouTube channel. They know if they want to connect with somebody else over their love of laptops or their passion for laptops, they know they can come to your YouTube channel. Again, this doesn't have to be a completely set in stone rule, but you will find it very, very helpful if, number one, you ask your question about why am I creating a YouTube channel, and then number two, understand what it is you want your YouTube channel to be about. And like I said, I know several people who have wanted to give YouTube a go, but they keep flying all over the place about one day they're posting about this, the other day they're posting about that. And if you're constantly just doing all these things, then, you're going to have a hard time building a community, because a viewer isn't going to know what you're talking about from one day to the next. On the John Campea Show, viewers know every day what it is we're going to be talking about. We're going to talk about movies, movie news, some TV and streaming, but that's what we're going to be talking about. So when people come, they know that's what the topic is. So it's quicker and much easier to build a community. If you're all over the place, it's going to be more difficult. It's going to be more difficult. And again, that doesn't mean you have to be super specific. We only talk about Alienware laptops. But if you can, great. But if you want to be general about your topics, laptops in general, then that too, that's good. So thing number one, ask yourself, why do I want a YouTube? Not because there's a right and wrong answer, but just because it'll help guide you as you move forward. Number two, know what your YouTube channel is about. Question number three that you need to ask yourself, and this is where it starts to get difficult. Okay? This is where it starts to get difficult. You need to look at yourself and ask yourself, this is particularly if you're already a YouTuber. Why would somebody watch my videos? Why would somebody watch my videos? Now, again, Let's go up to those questions. If you're just looking for personal expression, you don't care about why somebody would watch your videos. If they want to watch them, great. If not, fine. I'm just here to do it for personal expression, you know? But if you're answering the question almost any of these other things, you need to ask, why would somebody watch my videos? Because just because you're talking about laptops doesn't mean anybody in the world who's slightly interested in laptops would want to come to your channel. What are you offering people? In other words, in asking, why would somebody watch my videos? You have to ask yourself, what value, experience, or information is a viewer getting from my videos that they generally can't get anywhere else? What value, experience, or information is a viewer getting from my videos that they, generally speaking, can't get anywhere else? Because if you are not giving a potential viewer value, if you are not giving a potential viewer a unique experience, and if you're not giving a potential viewer usable information, then why would a viewer watch your videos, right? You got to answer that question. So you ask yourself, why do I want to make a YouTube channel? And then you ask yourself, what do I want to make my YouTube videos about? Well, now you got to get to a really hard question. Why would somebody want to watch me doing videos about this? Or what is my idea for making videos that will offer a value to somebody watching, that will offer an experience to somebody who's watching, or will offer valuable information and usable information to somebody watching? Let's go back to the cyclist thing. Let's say you want to make videos about cycling, and like every week, let's say you do videos weekly. Every week, you want to talk about a hidden gem bike trail. That becomes a value proposition. That becomes usable information that somebody who's interested in cycling will get from watching your videos, right? It's like, hey guys, I live in Southern California, and I just want to say that if you're ever around the Pasadena area, if you're within a 1 or 2 hour drive of Pasadena, I want to talk about this great bike trail that I found. It's located at this place. Here's some photos that I took going around it. Here's some GoPro footage of me riding this trail. If it's sunny out, it's really a beautiful view, blah, blah, blah. Now, this is just an example. But here's the thing. Whenever I talk to people about videos and if they want to do YouTube, I find that whenever I ask somebody the question, why would somebody want to watch your videos? Number one, they seem to be offended that I would ask that question. I don't know why, but they take that kind of offensively that I would ask, why would somebody want to watch your videos? But almost none of the time is somebody ready to answer that question. They haven't thought about it. Because here's what everybody asks. Everybody asks this question. How do I get more viewers? That's the question I always get asked. Doesn't matter if I'm speaking at a conference or a convention or something like that. Inevitably, the first 20 questions that get asked of me are always, how do I get more viewers? How do I get more viewers? How many YouTube videos do you have? Oh, I haven't put up a video yet, but how do I get more viewers? How do I get more viewers, John? What are your videos about? Well, I put up a 5-minute video every night of me trimming my fingernails. Okay. But they always want to, how do I get more videos? How do I get more viewers? You know what that's like? Here's what that's like. It's like going to the sports store and buying your first pair of ice skates. Your first pair of ice skates. You've never skated before in your life, and you're buying your first pair of ice skates. And the salesman sells you the ice skates, and then the salesman says to you, do you have any questions? And then you say to him, yeah. How do I get an NHL team to sign me to a $5 million a year contract? Dude, you just bought your first pair of ice skates. You don't even know if you can skate yet. It doesn't matter. How do I get an NHL team to sign me to a $5 million contract? And that is essentially what we are doing when we ask the question, how do I get more viewers, before we have ever asked, why am I doing a YouTube channel? What is my YouTube channel about? And most importantly, why would somebody even want to watch my videos? And again, like I said, this is a difficult, hard question. And it's sometimes, you're not going to come up with a good answer for this. And maybe that just means YouTubing's not for you. Maybe that just means you should just use YouTube for personal expression, because that can be very enjoyable too. But never ask the question of how do I get more viewers if you've never sat down and actually figured out, why would somebody watch my videos? What do I offer my viewers? Do I offer them a fun experience? Well, be honest with yourself. Are your videos a fun experience to watch, or are they kind of boring? Ask yourself, am I offering a particular value to people who watch my videos? And if you're not, acknowledge that and be real with yourself. What information? Am I giving interesting and unique information or perspective or context? And maybe the answer to that question is no. And that is at least something you can look at and then start working on. But yes. And you'll notice out of all the questions to ask, none of them include, how do I get more viewers? But John, the reason I'm watching this video is to learn how to get 10,000 viewers. Well, then you're in the wrong place. We're going to talk about how to do a YouTube channel, hopefully enjoyably for yourself, where you get a lot out of it, and hopefully make you a little bit better at it, and then worry about how do we add 10,000 new viewers. Again, I'm just trying to be real. I'm just trying to be real with you guys, okay? All right, let's keep going here. So we've asked, why do I want to do a YouTube channel? What is my YouTube channel about? And we ask ourselves the hard question, why would somebody want to watch my videos? A fourth question you want to ask is this: how much time do I have to give to my YouTube channel? Now, there is no right or wrong answer to this question. The question of how much time do I have to give and dedicate to doing a YouTube channel, this isn't a right or wrong thing. It'll just help you understand what you can realistically expect from yourself to do. Maybe you've got an hour to a day to dedicate to your YouTube channel. Great, then you can start planning things accordingly. But you got to be realistic with yourself, because you can tell yourself I've got an hour or two a day, but if you don't really have an hour or two a day, you're just going to become frustrated. You're just going to become discouraged about the fact that you're not making the progress that you want to make. Be realistic with yourself. Do I have like 2 hours a week that I can dedicate to my YouTube channel? Great. Start there. You know, you've asked yourself why you're doing it. You've asked yourself, what is it about? You've asked yourself, what can I do to give a viewer a reason to watch my videos? Now let's talk about and think about, how much time do I realistically have? And once again, heavy emphasis on this. There's no right or wrong answer. It's not like if you don't have 10 hours a week to dedicate to your YouTube videos, don't bother doing YouTube. No, even if all you got is like 1 hour a week, at least be realistic with yourself so you don't become disillusioned and you don't become disappointed. So figure that part out. How much time do you actually have per week to get things going? Or even if you've already started your channel and you've started feeling frustrated, take inventory. Be realistic with yourself. How much time do I have to dedicate to it? All right. Fifth question. How much money do I have to start or give my YouTube channel? And again, this is like question number 4. There's no right or wrong answer to this. Because if you've got like no money to put towards starting or improving your YouTube channel, that's okay. Just be realistic with yourself about that. Don't start thinking, I'm going to do these videos where I have 3 different camera angles and, you know, neon lights that flash in the back and dancing girls from the local club. Whenever I tell a joke, they do a funny dance and whatever. I mean, that is great, but if you've got no money to put into it yet, don't plan that, right? Just know where you're at. You say, okay, I've got a webcam. All right. We're going to be using this a little bit later, but you know, I've got a webcam, or I've got my phone. You can use your Android or iOS phone as your web camera. I've got a living room lamp. I don't have money to actually buy lights. I've got a living room lamp. Okay, great. That's what I used to do. I used to use living room lamps as my lights. You know, again, there's no right or wrong answer. It's not, if you don't have $200 a month to put towards your YouTube channel, don't bother. No. It's just about being realistic about what you can expect from yourself and start planning accordingly. I know I've got 2 hours a week I can dedicate. I think I got about $100 that I can spend on some gear, or maybe I've got $500 to spend. It's just all about being realistic and understanding where you're at and then making the best of what you have. Just don't plan to do things that require 15 hours a week if you don't have 15 hours a week. And don't plan on doing things that's going to require you to spend about $1,000 if you don't have $1,000. That's okay. Start with where you're at and build from there. So that's that question. How much time do I have to give to my YouTube channel? How much money do I have to give to my YouTube channel? Last one is this. What are my personal strengths that I have that I can bring to my YouTube channel? Because ultimately a YouTube channel is about your personality. What is the most unique thing you have? The most unique thing you have is not the bike you ride, because lots of people have that bike. The most unique thing you have is not the laptop you have, because probably tens of thousands of people have the same laptop. The most unique thing you have is you. Your personality, your voice, your perspective. Everything that is you is the most unique thing that you have that nobody else can get anywhere else. So take inventory of yourself and think, what are the strengths that I have that I should really focus in on in developing my own YouTube videos? Maybe you're a great artist, right? Like box office artist, like James, the box office artist, or several of the great artists out there, right? Maybe that is your big strength. Well, make sure you skew your YouTube channel in such a way that's going to take advantage and lean into your unique skill as an artist. Maybe you're a great communicator. I'll tell you what, I consider myself falling under that one. I'm no great artist. I am no great artist. What I am is a pretty good communicator. I can talk live. That's one of the reasons why I do live video. That's one of the reasons why a lot of other great YouTubers don't do live video, is because they need to edit. They need to prep what they're going to say, and they're great at doing it, and they're fabulous. One of my strengths is as a communicator. I'm pretty good at communicating and properly transforming my thought into words. And, you may not like what I have to say, but I'm going to say it pretty clearly, and you're going to understand where I'm coming from, right? So I personally lean more into the communicator thing. Maybe you're a really strong communicator. If so, you may want to try to focus your YouTube channel and the videos that you're going to do around the fact and utilizing and leveraging your strength as a communicator, right? So there's that. Maybe it's humor. A great example of this is, I often say I think the two best online film critics, like pure film critics online, are Chris Stuckman and Jeremy Johns. The humor part, not so much Chris. Chris is more about analysis, but Jeremy Johns, incredible gift of humor. He's a funny dude. He's a very funny dude. And so Jeremy has learned to really leverage that aspect of his personality and of his person that he can bring to his YouTube videos, and he leverages that. So there's that. Maybe it's expertise. Let's go back to the cycling example. Maybe you've worked with bikes your whole life. Maybe you've ridden on the U.S. Olympic cycling team. Maybe you've designed bike tracks. Maybe you worked as a bike designer for whatever, or maybe you've just been a bike enthusiast your whole life, but maybe you have specific expertise in an area. There's a lot of YouTube channels that I watch on a lot of different topics, and a lot of those specific YouTube channels are about this one little area that person is a real. There's one guy I watch once in a while he's just great at repairing Apple computers. That's what this guy does. He repairs Apple computers. And so he works professionally in Apple computer repair. And so his YouTube channel is about that unique expertise he has to bring that to his YouTube channel and communicate. And by utilizing that expertise, he gives value to his audience and all that kind of good stuff. So, maybe the thing you bring is you're a great analyst. Maybe you've just got a really good gift for breaking down situations, to understand situations, giving context to situations. And, in that way, if you're good at that, well, then bring that to your YouTube channel. Leverage your YouTube channel to kind of focus on that sort of a thing that allows you to utilize your gifts as an analyst to do that. And listen, these are just some examples. These aren't the only ones. It's not like only artist, communicator, humor, expertise. There can be 1,000 other things. The key here is ask yourself whether you're just getting started or you've already been doing it for a while. Ask yourself, what are my personal strengths, right? If you're not a great communicator, then don't do 2-hour-a-day live streams. If you're not great at humor, like I'm not great at humor, don't base your videos on you trying to be funny. If you're not a great artist, don't base your videos around your artistic flair. But find what it is that you do think you're particularly good at, and then lean into that and enjoy that and do that. And I think you'll be off to a good start. And so listen, this may sound trite, but honestly, I 1000% believe that you will find a much better direction for yourself. I think you'll get a lot more fulfillment out of doing YouTube videos. I think you'll find a lot more success, whether success means 50 viewers a month or 500 viewers a month, whatever. But I think you'll find a lot more success in all that kind of stuff if you can honestly sit down with yourself and ask yourselves those questions. Number one, why do I want to do YouTube? Number two, what is my YouTube channel actually about? Number three, why would somebody want to watch my videos? That's a hard one, but be honest with yourself. Number four, how much time do I actually have to give to my YouTube channel? Number five, how much money do I have to put into my YouTube channel? And number six, what are my personal strengths that I can take and apply to my YouTube channel? I really believe if it's just as simple and just as hard as that, if you will actually take the time to sit down and work through that stuff, I think, again, you will find engaging on YouTube and doing a YouTube channel is going to be a lot more fun. It's going to have a lot more focus. You're going to enjoy more success, again, by whatever you define as success. 50 viewers, 500 viewers, doesn't matter. And you're just in general going to have a better time doing it. But again, I find most people that I talk to online or at conferences, whatever, have never asked themselves those questions. And believe me, I have a written down answer for all those questions for myself. I'm not going to share them, but I have a document that I have fully written out that I've had for a long time about my answers to all those questions. So there's that. All right, look, I want to keep this video relatively short. So before we get to your live questions, there's just one more thing I want to talk about. I want to talk about two particular rules for success, okay? And these are more philosophical, but I really believe in these two things, okay? Now, I've enjoyed a decent amount of success. Like, I'm not like my friends, the Fine brothers, who have like 100,000 million subscribers. But I've been able to enjoy a decent amount of success. I've been able to make a career out of blogging and podcasting and YouTubing for about 10 years. And I've been able to do that because I believe I follow these two basic rules for success. Okay, so these are basically philosophical, but follow me here. Rule number one, and you guys have heard me say this before if you watch my channel on a regular basis. Create content that your audience can identify you by what it is you love, not by what it is you hate. Now, listen, many of you have probably heard me say, this before. But hopefully now that we've gone through those 5 rules, you start to understand part of the reason why I always say that. If you ask yourself these 6 questions, then now when you hear me say, create content that your audience can identify you by what it is you love, not by what it is you hate, you start to have that aha moment, right? That, oh, I see how that ties into all that other thing. So basically what I mean by make sure your audience can identify what it is you love. Because if you know what your YouTube channel is about, your audience can identify you by what it is you love. If you understand why you're doing a YouTube channel, your audience will be able to identify what it is you love. So there's that. The other thing is this. I always want to encourage bloggers, podcasters, YouTubers. We need more people. We need more bloggers. We need more podcasters. We need more YouTubers. The more that join the community, the better. However, we need more of all of those things, of people who can be identified by what it is they love, not by what it is they hate. Now, look, everybody likes the whole Peter Griffin. Everybody knows that episode of Family Guy, right? Where Peter Griffin got the gig on the evening news where he goes, "The grind my gears." I can't do a Peter Griffin voice for the life of me, so never mind. You know what grinds my gears? And he's just always bitching and whining and complaining, right? Remember that in Family Guy? You know what grinds my gears? And he's just blah, blah. Some people base their entire blogs, podcasts, or YouTube channels on bitching and just talking about things they hate. Hate videos will get you some very quick, very easy kind of clicks. They do, but they don't set your channel up for long-term success. And by long-term, I don't mean 2 or 3 years. I'm talking 6, 7, 8, 9 years, because eventually your whining and bitching and moaning and complaining gets a little empty. People realize there's no actual value in me being here and hearing this stuff. Again, I understand. Like, for instance, there's this Apple, it's not an Apple website. There is this YouTube channel that's just all they do. And again, I'm not going to name any names. All they do is bitch about Apple. That's all they do. They just bitch every single, and you go to their YouTube channel and every single thumbnail is, you know, Tim Cook with the red demon eyes because they're fucking 5 years old or whatever. You know, Tim Cook with the massive demon eyes. You know, YouTube, you know, iPhone 12 sucks balls. And then the next video is Tim Cook with devil horns. And the title of the video is iPhone 12 sucks your ass. And then the next video is iPhone was created by the communists in 1969 Russia. You know, all this ridiculous stuff, right? It's just everything about whine, bitch, moan. Nobody who goes to that YouTube channel can tell me what it is that YouTube creator loves. Nobody, you can't tell me what it is. You cannot look at that dude's YouTube channel. I actually think it's a couple of guys that run it, but you can't look at that YouTube channel. I have no idea what do these people love? What do they enjoy? What are they passionate about? All I know is by what it is they hate. They clearly hate Apple. They clearly hate Apple. Okay, great. I got that the first 20 videos on your channel. Don't be one of those guys. Like, yes, if you're doing a cycling YouTube channel, once in a while you're going to come across a bike or a bike trail or a brand of cycling pants or whatever that you don't like, and you got to talk about that, yes. But in general, make sure when somebody comes to your cycling YouTube channel that they just look and say, wow, this individual who does this YouTube channel, this is clearly run by people who love cycling. Who love cycling. Just do me a favor, whatever you're doing your channel on, whether it's about makeup tutorials, whether it's about video games, whether it's about mobile phones, or whether it's about cars, or whether it's about anything at all in the world, do yourself and do the community a favor by making sure you do your YouTube channel in such a way that people, when they look at it, can identify who you are by what you love. Doesn't mean you're never going to have negative stuff. Of course you will. Just make sure the negative stuff isn't always outweighing the positive. That's all I'm saying. So that's thing number one in the rules for success. The next little thing of rule for success I want to say is this, and this is important because you know how I said a little bit earlier when I talk to people at these conferences or online, or people write to me, well, the first thing they always ask me is, how do I get more viewers, right? They don't want to ask the question, or they don't want to be able to answer, why would anybody want to watch your videos? They want to know how to get more viewers. The other thing is this. I am constantly talking to people who don't actually want to put in any work. Like, they just want to hear, what are the 3 steps I need to take? You know, I literally had somebody ask that once. What would you say are the 3 keys to having a successful YouTube channel? What they were really asking me was, how can I have great success with little effort? That's what they were really asking me. How can I have great success with little effort, right? And as I go around and look at some people's websites or in some people's YouTube channels, you can just tell this person puts no effort. It's not that this person isn't talented or that this person doesn't have potential. It's just they clearly didn't give a crap. Like, they couldn't even be bothered to put a living room lamp in front of them to create light so we can properly see them. They couldn't be bothered to pick up a $15 USB mic. So they're not just using the internal mic on their thing and it sounds like complete crap. They couldn't even be bothered to put in research to what it was they were going to talk about. Like, I'm not saying they have to say things that agree with what I believe, but when I'm hearing you, at least let it sound like you've at least looked a little bit into this, because here's the thing. Put in real effort in the videos you're making. If it is clear to your audience that you don't think your content is worth your effort, then your audience will quickly determine that your content is not worth their time. If a viewer comes to your YouTube channel and can instantly see they're watching one of your videos, if a potential audience person can see one of your videos and it becomes obvious to them quickly that you didn't really care about putting a lot of effort into the video, then what the message to that viewer is, well, if this content isn't worth your time and effort, then it's not worth my time to watch. And they have every right to feel that way. And look, we go back to this is why we go back to these other questions that you need to ask yourself. You need to ask yourself, how much time do I have to give my YouTube channel? How much money do I have to put at it? And it doesn't matter what your answer is to that. But if you know you've got 2 hours a week to put into it, and you know you've got about $70 to put into it, then compensate for that with how much effort you put in. Stretch that $70 as much as you can. Make the best out of those 2 hours that you have. Just make it look like that video matters to you. Because if you don't tell your audience, hey audience, you watching my video is important to me, and I appreciate that you're watching my video, and I'm going to show you how much I appreciate that you watch my video by putting every bit of effort I have available to me into making this as good of a video as I can. Not as good of a video as somebody who does it full time, not as good of a video as somebody who has $10,000 of disposable income, but I'm going to show you that I value you watching my video by giving you the best effort I have. With whatever limited time and financial resources I have, I'm just going to show you that this matters to me. And I've seen too many people do videos go, hey, hey, let's do a video about that soccer match. Okay. Should we talk about it? Nah, let's just turn on the camera. Let's just talk about it. Blah, 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 blah. And, so why would anybody want to come back and watch that video again? I've seen that with tech videos, with fashion videos, with sneaker videos, with movie videos. I've seen that across the board. You got to be able to show your audience that you value them watching it. And the currency that you have to do that is with your effort. So yeah, I would say this, that the two main rules for success from a philosophical point of view are create content that your audience can identify you by what it is you love, not by what it is you hate. And number two, put in real effort, because if it's clear to your audience that you didn't think your videos were worth your time, why should they think your videos are worth their time? So those are two very big philosophical things that I would suggest for that. Anyway, yeah, so that's just some of the stuff I wanted to talk about from a philosophical principle point of view. Ask yourself those 6 questions. Everybody should do this. I don't care if you have no YouTube channel. I don't care if you have 1,000 subscribers. Ask yourself, why do I want to do this? What is my channel about? And be able to answer that. Why would somebody want to watch my videos? How much time do I have to create these videos? How much finances do I have to create these videos? And what are my personal strengths? And am I leveraging my personal strengths in making my videos? Or am I trying to do things in my videos that my personal strengths aren't gifted to? These are some hard questions. These are some difficult conversations you need to have with yourself, but I think you will find great results if you do that. I think you will find great results if you do that. So anyway, guys, that's just a little bit of an intro I wanted to do. Like I said, I really want this video to be more about this. Like, listen, we could literally sit here and do a 8-part, 16-hour series on this, but we obviously don't have that kind of time right here. So we're going to limit our discussion to what it is you guys want to ask. What questions do you have? I won't have all the answers, but I'll give the best that I can. So if you guys do have a question or something like that about this topic, go ahead, use the super chat feature, submit it. We'll get to all the questions we get sent in. I'm getting a little bit warm. I'm going to turn on my AC here. Give me a second. It's getting a little bit warm in here. It's sunny out today. So it was cold in here when I started, but once I turn the lights on, it starts to get warm. Okay. So guys, let's go over and start taking the questions you guys have been sending in, shall we? All right. We are going to start off with Tim Duplicia, who writes in, "Hey, John, I'm curious. How do I get... I swear, Tim, I did not say what I said earlier because I read your question. I did not read your question in advance. Hey, John, I'm curious. How do I get more views? I have a YouTube channel, but right now it's mainly friends and family watching. I'd like to expand that." Okay, so here's the thing. Honestly, why on earth would you want to have more people coming to watch your channel right now? There's a saying that goes, you never get a second chance to make a first impression, right? So let me ask you, Tim, have you asked yourself those 6 questions? Have you honestly answered the question, why would somebody watch one of my videos? Do your videos clearly identify what it is you love? And do your videos clearly communicate that you've put all of your effort into it and is ready to present to an audience member? Because I would say this, if you're not at the point yet that you're creating high enough quality content that you would feel proud to present to a potential viewer, why would you want a new viewer coming to your videos right now? Because once somebody comes to your channel, if they watch one of your videos and it's kind of half-assed and it's not actually that good and you haven't learned how to leverage your personal strengths really effectively and you're not really specific and clear on what it is your video is about, if an audience member comes to your channel and their first experience with one of your videos is not so hot, guess what? They're never going to come back. They're never going to come back. So I would say right now, don't worry about how do I get more viewers. I would ask yourself, how do I make better content? And really get that hammered in and then worry about audience development a little bit later. And listen, don't just ask your close friends, are my videos any good? Because they're never going to want to hurt your feelings. You know, ask an acquaintance, say, listen, I need somebody who's going to be brutally honest with me. What do you think about the quality of my videos? And you need to, because you need to understand where you're at. And focus on that. Focus on making better content. Focus on making the types of videos that when a viewer does come to your channel, check it out, they're going to have as good of an experience as possible, that they got value or an experience or information that they couldn't generally get somewhere else, and it was presented in a clear and concise and wonderful manner. Worry about that right now. Don't worry about how do I get more views? Because 99% of the time, and again, nobody wants to hear this. Everybody wants to hear, my videos are great already. No, they're not. No, they're not. 99% of the time, the roadblock preventing a channel from getting more viewers is your content is simply not good enough yet. And that's okay. That's okay. We all need a starting place. You know, think about the first time you had sex. You were terrible at it. Maybe she lied to you and said you were great. She's lying. You were terrible at it. Hopefully you got a little bit better as you went along. The key is, if you're just getting started, your videos are probably pretty bad right now. And that's okay. That's nature. That's the way it should be. That's the way it should be. But get a realistic assessment about where your videos are at quality-wise. And if they're not really great yet, focus on making them better, then worry about it. Because again, 99% of the time, the roadblock to getting more viewers, and nobody wants to admit this, is the fact that your content is simply just not good enough to get more viewers yet. So again, I'm just trying to be real. I could try to sell you snake oil and I could try to say all this really fluffy sunshine up your ass stuff, but I'm just going to try to be real. So focus on that, Tim, and then start asking. And by the way, once you start making better content, the answers to how do I get more viewers starts to become abundantly more clear. It really does. So anyway, that's that. But good on you for investing, man. All right, Damien Dornford writes, what are bad habits to avoid on your channel? Well, I would say one thing that we touched on a little bit earlier, hey, listen, every once in a while, you got to make videos that are complaining about certain things or that are negative about certain things, because that's if you're going to be real. But make sure you never skew your whole channel negative. There's that. But the other thing is this, not sticking to a schedule. Now, it doesn't matter if you only plan to put out 2 videos a week Or hell, if you only plan to put out one video a week, or maybe you only plan to put out one video a month, that's all fine. But I really believe, and some YouTubers will disagree with this, but I really believe having a schedule and sticking to that schedule is vitally important. Because if your potential audience just knows that, hey, Wednesdays, Eddie puts up a new video, and then they come back on Wednesday and Eddie don't have a new video, that can break their habits of coming and having your YouTube channel in their cycle and rotation of YouTube channels they visit. Again, I know there are some YouTubers who don't believe in that. I completely do. So one of the big bad habits is not sticking to your schedule. You're not always going to be able to 100% stick to your schedule, but do the best that you can. All right, next up. Ben Rayner writes, how do you get a nun? How do you get a nun USB mic? I honestly don't know what a nun USB mic is, to be honest with you. To work with a computer, what you need an interface. What you need an interface. What kind of XLR do you use? Okay, I'll be honest with you, Ben. None of those three things make any sense to me. I don't know what it is you're asking. All right, okay, look. Take the word none out. Maybe you just accidentally put that. How do you get a USB mic to work? Most USB mics, here, I'll show you. I've got one right here. This is a USB mic I will use when I'm on the road. When I'm on the road and going out around, like if I'm in Vegas or if I'm going to up to the Campea Ranch, I'll use this. And it's just got a USB connector on the end. How does it work? Just plug it in. Just plug it in. And then you go, whether you're using Mac or whether you're using Windows, just go to your audio device control panel, whether you're in Mac or thing, and audio input, you select that mic. In this case, it's a Blue Yeti microphone, and just select that. As far as what kind of, there is only one kind of XLR. So let me bring this up here. I'll bring this up. See, I was a little bit prepared. Webcam. Okay, so this mic here is an XLR mic. You can see it's plugged into the XLR. XLR does not plug directly into your computer, right? So what it does is, I have two audio interfaces on my desk right now. I've got my Rode my Rodecaster Pro here, but I also have my Zoom H6 that I'm currently using the Zoom H6. You see the XLR plugged into the Zoom H6, and then you see this USB cable that runs into the computer. And then that USB cable makes the computer recognize that interface. So there are many, many different types of interfaces you can get. There are some very expensive ones. There are some very cheap ones. What's the name of the one? Foresight? I want to say Foresight as a manufacturer, some really good. So if you don't want to use a USB mic, you want to use an XLR mic, a Foresight interface, you need that interface that becomes the translation place between your XLR mic and the USB that goes into your computer. And lots, you can get one for $50, you can get one for $500. It depends on the kind of one that you want. Thank you, AO City thing. It's Focusrite. Focusrite. That's the name of it. Thank you. Not Foresight. Focusrite. You're absolutely right. That is the name of the brand. Okay. Let's move on here. But as far as USB mic, just plug it in, go to your audio controller on your computer, and where it says audio in, select that microphone, and you should be good to go. Just make sure you have it plugged in first. Okay. Next up, Cam K writes, you said yourself how lucrative copyright laws are. Do you have a lawyer to help with that aspect with all the thumbnails you put up and all the, dude, please put spaces in between your words. With all the thumbnails you put up and all the images you bring up, it seems fair use is more risk assessment. With fair use, I understand the aspect of it being a commentary review or whatnot, but that's one out of 4 factors a judge looks at. 11th, it's 2 words. Even then, guys, please double check your writing. Even then, it comes down to what the judge decides. No clear formula. That's not true. There is some very, very clear formula. Look, we're not going to go into a full discussion on fair use doctrine. So basically, for those of you who don't know what Cam is talking about or asking about. We're all very aware there's copyright laws, right? You can't use other people's copywritten material, whether it's music, images, video, whatever. But there is an exception for that under the law from a doctrine called fair use. It's the reason why in my documentary, Movie Trailers, a Love Story, go on over to Amazon and watch it, you guys. My documentary, Movie Trailers, a Love Story, we use a lot of footage from movie trailers. Guess what? That's copywritten material. But we're able to use it because we're using it for educational, commentary, and criticism purposes, right? Or educational. Educational, commentary, criticism, new things like that. If you are using that, so when we are talking about Star Trek The Next Generation, I can bring up a Star Trek The Next Generation image if we're discussing that thing specifically, right? If we're having a discussion for education, commentary, criticism, we can do that. Now, again, don't just take what I'm saying here. Go online. There are very, very good full discussions online. But, you know, I do have a copyright lawyer that worked with me on my movie, and they just basically made sure, yeah, that, hey, guess what? We are talking about First Blood, the Rambo movie, in this portion of the thing, or what we're talking about. We're talking about trailers that give away key things in their trailers. Movies that have key things given away in their trailers. And an example of that was the trailer for the original Rambo movie, First Blood, with Sylvester Stallone, because there was a part in it. And so we showed that part because it was for educational documentary purposes. We were able to show that clip, and we were protected under fair use. Now, again, I would say you need to do the work, go online, search under fair use. But as a general thing, just as a general thing, you can use an image or whatnot if you are doing it for those purposes. All right. So again, be careful, go and do more research on fair use yourself, but that's what YouTube channels like mine and I rely on more than anything else. Anyway, hopefully you find that a little bit helpful. All right, next up. That's the wrong page. All right, there we go. Luke1234 writes, what software would you recommend for recording yourself for solo video? As the camera I have is a Logitech C920 USB camera. By the way, the Logitech C920 has been the de facto standard bearer for webcams for like 7 years. It's a great webcam, and it's cheap. There are, just in the last year, a couple of webcams have come out that are better, but they're also much more expensive. But you can get a Logitech webcam for, God, like $60, $60, $70 these days. It's a great little camera to have. Honestly, I would suggest, because it's a free piece of software, I would suggest OBS Studio. Not Streamlabs OBS, not Slobs, but OBS. It's a very full-featured, but also just for recording a single camera. You know, you just, create your webcam as one of the sources, bring it up, and you hit the record button where is it on the screen? See, I use the record button down here, but on screen, there's a record button somewhere that you can hit, and you just hit record, and you start recording, and you're good to go. So yeah, I would say, and OBS is free. And the nice thing about OBS is that once you're ready to do some more complicated things, OBS is there for you. Like I do the entire John Campea Show on OBS. You know, want to see something cool that OBS can do? Okay, here, let me show you something a little cool. So I've got this TV over here, right? Well, I can, let me do a little bit switching back and forth. I also have these things called Stream Decks. I've got a couple of them, where I can program each button to control a certain aspect of OBS. So what I do is I tell this TV to show what is in the TV scene, right? So I have a TV scene. Let me bring it up here. I have a TV. Well, there's the screen for TV. But so I can say, now in this TV thing, I have different sources. I can bring up that image, whatever, right? Because under that scene of TV, I can create a bunch of different lists. So what I tell it to do is, and I'll bring this up here again, I can tell OBS, when I select TV image 1, put it on that TV. So I hit this button on my Stream Deck, and it brings up the image I have listed as TV1. So when on my show, I'm talking about Paramount or talking about a movie from Paramount, I can have that in the background. And then when I go on to my next story, I can say, now when I hit this button, bring up TV image 2. And it'll bring it up on my TV. And then TV image 3. And then TV image 4. And I can bring all these images up. I think, again, just OBS is pretty, it's pretty full featured. It's not quite as good as, say, Wirecast, but OBS is free and Wirecast is like $1,000. So it is great for using for your single camera, single record thing. It's perfect. And then it's there for you when you're ready to expand at the same time. So I would recommend OBS Studio. Again, I do not recommend Streamlabs OBS or Slobs as they call it. The original OBS Studio, I recommend that, and it is free. Okay, next up. Cam K writes, technically, although drastically unlikely, we're going back to the copyright thing. Could one get sued for sharing a photo with a McDonald's logo in it on their Facebook? Unlikely, but still uncool. Well, now we're talking about Facebook instead of YouTube videos. It's I don't know. I don't know if fair use applies to posting a social media post. But I mean, if you're outside and there's a McDonald's outside and it's out in public and you get it, then no, you're not going to get sued for having it on your Facebook page. But again, that's outside of the purview. Talking about what goes up on Facebook is outside of the purview of what we're here to talk about. All right. Next up, Cam also writes, last question surrounding this aspect. Do reactors get permission or a set amount of time they can display for their viewers? Are they just risking it? They're basically just risking it. Theoretically speaking, although it's kind of a gray area, reaction videos are kind of a gray area. Now, I don't worry about it because I don't do reaction videos, but reaction is a bit of a gray area because there is an argument to be made that it's fair use, but by showing the entire trailer in its entirety, you're kind of violating the doctrine of fair use. What happens a lot of times, though, is that on YouTube, you can get a content strike. That's serious, because I think if you get 3 content strikes, your channel gets deleted. But what happens more times than not is you get a copyright claim, which basically means that, and this has happened to me a couple of times, not often, I usually fight it and win, but sometimes it will be a copyright claim. That's not a strike on my channel. There are no negative ramifications, but what it does mean is that you can't make any money off that video. And any money that video does make will go to the copyright claimant, right? To some people, that's not a big deal. To some people, it is a big deal. But I would suggest looking more into that online, looking up trailer reactions, you know, and fair use and stuff like that. But yeah, it is a little bit of a risk, but you're not going to get sued, okay? Like, to the best of my knowledge, I've never heard of anybody getting sued for doing a trailer reaction video, right? I don't even ever hear people getting copyright strikes for doing it. At most, what normally happens is they get a copyright claim, which just means they don't get the money for that video. Nor really should you, because all you're doing is showing, you know, the studio's trailer. Anyway, but there are many different points of view on that. All right, let's see. Next up, we've got Ben Rayner, who writes, also, I did end up getting the A6900. Nice. I'm liking it so far. I'm just using the kit lens for now. Yeah, because let me bring up the webcam again. I brought this out just so we could have. So first of all, I'll show you this. This is my main camera. This is this camera that you're seeing. Like this camera. Come on, focus. Okay. That's this camera here. Oh, sorry, wrong button. There we go. That's this camera here. This is the Sony A6400 with a Sigma 16mm prime lens on it. And although they don't really overheat like they used to, I put a fan on it just to be safe, even though they really don't overheat anymore. By putting a fan on it, it guarantees it never overheats. Here's another example of the same camera I have here. This is the same thing, a Sony A6400. By the way, I have another Sony A. See that camera there? That usually points at either Aaron or Kimberly. That's another one there. And of course, then another one right there that points at me over here. But here's one, Sony A6400. This is the kit lens that's on it, and the kit lens is great. I love this camera. I love this camera. And now here's... this is my favorite lens too. This is the Sigma 30mm prime lens that I use with the cameras a lot. I love this lens. You can do a Logitech C920 webcam for like 60 or 70 or 80 bucks, and you will get a good image. You'll get a good image. You won't get this image though. And like some YouTubers are spending like $3,000 or $4,000 on their cameras. I'll tell you what, you can get this Sony a6400 today on eBay, probably for about 700 bucks. Now that's going to be way beyond what some of your budgets are, but that is really reasonable for this kind of image quality, right? I don't feel the need to buy one of those $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 cameras. I think these Sony a6000 series, whether it's a 6400, 6500, 6900, these cameras are great. I love them. And there are even some cheaper ones. You can get a 5900, a Sony a5900 that takes these lenses. You can probably get those for like 400 bucks right now, maybe even cheaper if you look. So I think getting that a6900 camera is a great choice, Ben. I think that's a great choice. All right, next up. Last question. I set up my camera to work with StreamYards. That's another piece of software a lot of people like to use. It works, but there are two black bars on the left and right side. Do you know how to get rid? Yes. I mean, I don't use StreamYard. I've played around with StreamYard. StreamYard is a free online service. It's not a piece of software you install into your computer. You use it through the cloud. It's a nice little piece of software. It's very nice. If you load into it though, and you get black bars on the side, basically what you're saying is you're not getting a 16:9 image like this camera is right now. This is 16:9. That's the aspect ratio. That's called the aspect ratio of the camera, right? Sometimes you'll get something like this. Maybe a 4:3 image or something like that. So it looks like there's black bars. There are two things you can do. Number one, look in the settings of your camera and make sure that you have the aspect ratio in your camera set to 16:9. It should be automatically anyway. Where the problem probably lies is in StreamYard. Go into StreamYard and check the settings that you have in StreamYard, and make sure that when you're on your video input, it has 16:9 set as your aspect ratio. So I would say go into StreamYard, look in the settings of your video capture and do that. Failing that, look on your camera to make sure it's outputting, because sometimes what your camera will record at and what it will put out of your HDMI is separate things. So I would suggest this. Let me bring this up here for a second. You will go to the back of your camera. You will go bring up the menu, hit the menu button, go through the menu, and instead of your regular settings, you want to find your HDMI settings, okay? Your HDMI settings. And in the HDMI settings, it will have the specific settings, not for what your camera records, but for what actually comes out. I can't open it with one hand, sorry. What actually comes out of the HDMI that's here on the side of your thing. Just make sure that that is also set to a 16:9 aspect ratio. So there are three things you can look at, man. Again, I would start by looking at the StreamYard capture setting. Then I would go and look at your HDMI output setting on your Sony device and make sure that's set to 16:9 as well. Okay. Next up, we've got Voltron Prime writes, do you prefer bagged milk or cartons? I prefer bagged milk, actually. Can't find it in the States, but that's what we get in Canada, bagged milk. Also, how does the bagged milk stand up in the store? It doesn't. It lays down. Also, tell my wife that it's normal that I wake and sleep to the John Campea Show. Mrs. Voltron Prime, it's totally natural to wake and sleep to the John Campea Show. All right, next up, Ted Wu writes, is setting up a live stream difficult on YouTube? No, it's really not. It's very easy. I see some people experiencing a bunch of technical difficulties every time they live stream. Well, yeah, because look, when you're streaming, when you're doing something that just a number of years ago, only a multi-million-dollar television studio could do, there are some things that could go wrong. The basics of setting up a YouTube live stream are actually very easy. And there are 1,000 YouTube videos showing you how to do that. Just go to YouTube and search for setting up a live stream on YouTube. You'll get easy things. There are a couple of areas. Sorry, I'm just reaching to pull out another drink here. There are a couple of things that could go wrong, though. Number one, a lot of people don't think about their bandwidth. Like how fast is your internet speed? And here's what happens a lot. I ask people, what's your internet speed? And they say, well, I've got 100 megabyte. Well, that sounds great. But the problem is, When your internet provider usually only tells you the amount of download speed you have. Now, what does that mean? It means if you're putting on Netflix on your computer, how fast can your internet at home receive internet information? And it's like 100 megabyte. But what normally happens is that your upload speed is usually a ton slower than your download speed. Like, for instance, my internet home speed, I get, I think, 900 megabytes download, which is almost gigabit, right? Which is crazy fast. I can do anything at home with that internet speed. It's crazy. 900 down, but I only have 30 megabyte up, which is significant. That's only 5%. Or, well, no, that's not 5%. It's, yeah, it's even less than that. Anyway, whatever 30 is of 900, right? And so I know when I've interviewed some people about doing some hosting, and I asked them, by the way, a lot of the videos will be done remotely. What is your internet upload speed? And a lot of times it's like 1.5, and that's just not fast enough for streaming live video like this. So quite often the problem is people don't realize that their upload speed, which is the key number you're looking for, not your download speed. Your download speed means nothing when it comes to streaming live video. What is your upload speed? What is your upload speed? That is what you've got to find. And you should have minimum 4 megabyte upload. Really, you should be looking for 6, 7, or 8 minimum. But like absolute minimum, you should be looking for 4 megabyte upload. So a lot of times when people have problems streaming, that's part of the problem. Sometimes it's their streaming software, whether it's StreamYard or something else. So yeah, the problem can be in a lot of different places. So I can't sit here and just tell you, oh, whenever there's a problem with streaming, here's the one answer. It could be one of many things. Those are usually some of the general things. And by the way, Jamie is bringing up a good point. And if you're going to do live streaming, I have Wi-Fi in my house, but don't use your Wi-Fi for your streaming computer. Plug into it directly with an actual cable. Actually plug Ethernet in. So my office, my studio is in my office, right? I converted this studio this was a garage. And I converted it, put it in hardwood floors, put it in a ceiling. I had to run a cable through the attic down this wall back here, into a case. See that little blue wire there? Into a cable jack, so I could run an Ethernet cable under the rug and into my computer because I don't want to rely on Wi-Fi. I have it hardwired in. So anyway, yeah. Sorry, I got sidetracked there a little bit. All right, let's move on here. Ted Wu also writes, I was told it's best to stick to a theme when starting a YouTube channel, like a tech channel or an entertainment channel. What are your thoughts? Yeah, we covered that a little bit earlier. Absolutely. Unless you're just using your YouTube channel as a personal expression space, which is perfectly good, I would say make sure you know what it is your YouTube channel is supposed to be about. Pick a theme. It doesn't have to be super specific, but at least general, because that way people know what they're getting when they come to your YouTube channel. All right. Next up, Ben Rayner writes, how long did it take you to get comfy asking guests to come on? I always feel weird about reaching out to people. I have no problem with it at all. I have no problem with it at all. When I was single, I never had the guts to go up to a woman and start talking to her, but I can ask guests to come on my show, no problem. I have no problem. I've never had a problem with that. That's always the easiest thing in the world. Because what's the worst that happens? They say no. They say no. No big deal. Just ask them it's the same thing with asking a woman out. What's the worst that can happen? They say no, right? And no, it's the worst thing they can do is say no. Don't feel awkward about that. Don't feel awkward about that. All right. BX Legend writes, hey, John, do you think a debate platform works? It can. It can be very, very good. The thing is this. You've got to have two people that have good chemistry together, that know how to give and take, that know how to talk over each other momentarily and then make sure to back off. Like if you watch Rob and I, like when he and I start debating, we know how to ebb and flow. We know when to let the other person go. We know when to interject a little bit and then when to come back. But here's the other thing about a debate format. You got to make sure that the people who are debating have a good, solid grasp of the topics they're debating. But generally speaking, yeah. I mean, a lot of my favorite sports shows on ESPN or whatever are set up as kind of debate formats. So, yeah, I think a debate format can work. But again, make sure you got two people who have good chemistry together. Make sure there's respect. They respect each other's points of view. Make sure they both have a grasp on what the topic is. Otherwise, an audience is just going to find it to be noisy and not worth watching. But yeah, it can work. It absolutely can. All right, JCL Productions writes. Where is that? Oh, there we are. Hello, John. My channel is dedicated to scenes we do for actors. I don't know what that means. Scenes we do for actors. We have released our 75th scene today, and we shoot them like short films. So 75 short films in 2 years. That's pretty good, man. We've gotten great feedback, but okay, where's JCL part 2? There we go. But traction went down. Some people suggest I make vids about my mom and I as filmmakers because people like to know the YouTube as well. People like to know the YouTube as well. Do you mean people like to know the YouTuber as well? I'm going to assume you mean people like to know the YouTuber as well. I found that that's true. That's true. Like I find when I make videos, every once in a while, I will make a video. I'll just put up a video like, hey, here's something about a day in the life of the Campea house. Whether it's my dog's funny habit of pushing their empty bowl over to me as their way of telling me they want to be fed, or whether it's talking about, like, I recently was in the hospital and I made a little video about, what put me in the hospital. Yeah, it's true. Sometimes, like, viewers who watch your channel, they would like to just know more about the YouTuber themselves. Don't make that the focus of your channel, but absolutely every once in a while that can just create a better sense of community. All right, thanks for asking, man. All right, next up, we've got Peter Cunnington writes, all I have is my cell phone. That's perfectly fine. A cell phone camera. What's the best was to start? Probably meant way. What's the best way to start out on YouTube, and how can I make this a full-time career? Okay, so again, you're the guy buying your first pair of skates, asking the skate salesman, how do I get a $5 million NHL contract? So go back to the beginning of the video and watch all that kind of stuff. But listen, using your phone, if that's what you got, and you don't have the money to buy a dedicated webcam like a Logitech C920 or something like that, if all you got is your cell phone, you're good. Then start there. There are a lot of videos and everything you can find online about how to hook up your camera, your cell phone as your web camera. So go and look those up. But yes, especially if you have a phone that's like 2 or 3 years old, like 1, 2, or 3 years old, the cameras on most phones today are really good. So just look up a video on how to connect your phone to your computer to be used as a webcam, and you will be golden, my friend. All right, next up, James Diesel writes, I'm reviving my college radio show as a podcast and have zero idea how OBS works and how to live stream 3 talking heads, where to put them, etc. Where do I start to learn this stuff? Haha, I know I use Zoom. Honestly, there are many very good OBS tutorials on YouTube because, I use Wirecast for the longest time. And when I decided to give OBS a shot, I've never used OBS. So the first thing I did was I went online and I just looked OBS for beginners. That's where I started. And there are a lot of very good step-by-step YouTube videos on how to use OBS. And once again, for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, OBS is this piece of software that I use to do my switching and live streaming and all that kind of stuff. And that's just what I use. And it's very simple, but can be quite powerful at the same time. So I would say go and use those and you'll be good to go. You'll be good to go, and you'll be fascinated by what you're actually able to do. You'll be really surprised what you're able to do. But and again, there are many of those online. Just go and look those up. All right, next up, And I do recommend it, James. I do. Next up, where did you JCL? James Diesel also writes, what's a good, hopefully easy app to make graphics and boxes for the videos to go into? All right, we call those boxes mortises. We call those the industry lingo for these boxes. So what is he talking about? Let me bring this up again. So you see well, I don't need to. You can see it right now. You see this screen, right? There's look under, there's that blue background. Here's the John Campea Show logo. And then it's like there's this box I'm in, right? And then there's another box that has all the questions in. That is a graphic that has 2 areas of transparency. And then what I do is I put my video behind this graphics transparency area here, and then I crop it to fit within the box. And then I put this screen capture of your questions behind that part of the transparency, and I crop it so it fits inside the box. So the easiest one to use is Photoshop, but many graphic programs will allow you to create transparencies, will allow you to create graphics with transparencies or PNG files. Usually they're PNGs. There's a good one called Affinity Photo that is fairly cheap. I think it's like $30. But there are also some free graphic programs out there. So if you just do a quick Google, the one I use is Photoshop. But if you just do a quick search on Google for like free graphics programs, particularly ones that can create PNG with transparencies, with alpha channels, that's the other technical lingo for a transparency area is a alpha channel. All right. So when you hear alpha channel, all they're really talking about usually is this box right here that is see-through, so you can see what video is behind the image, right? So, and a lot of them are doing, but, somebody in there is also putting up, Photopea is a good one and free. I've heard of Photopea, Joshua. Thank you for suggesting that one. So go and look a couple of those up, but if you've got Photoshop, that's the best one to use it with. All right. Next up, where are we at? Oh, that was the wrong one. Okay, here we go. Next up, K Major writes, I've always had an interest in a sports podcast. Very good. Particularly about my Nets. Been a Nets fan since the Kevin Van Horn days. Can a podcast/channel work if the focus is solely on one team? Side note, I can't stand bandwagon fans. Number one, don't be a fan snob. Do not be a fan snob. You might as well not even start your podcast. If you're going to be a fan snob, don't even start your podcast. Everybody starts being a fan at some point for some reason, right? And there's nothing a fan of anything, but particularly sports, hate than somebody, you sound incredibly pretentious when you say, I don't like bandwagon. You sound pretentious. So I know you don't intend to, but you do. Don't do that, because that is not a way to ingratiate yourself to an audience. Everybody starts, every object of your fandom, whether it's a movie, a musical group, a clothing line, or a sports team, start somewhere. Start somewhere. And there's nothing that will turn off fans more than have some asshole come around saying, you're a bandwagon fan. Oh, well, shut the fuck up. I'm not going to watch your channel. I'm not going to listen to your podcast. Make your podcast a welcoming place for whoever loves that team, for whatever reasons they love that team. Like when I started following the New England Patriots is when Coach Parcells went there. And yeah, some pretentious asshole could have come up to me and said, just because the great Parcells is there, now you're a fan? Bandwagon fan? Fuck you. Sorry, can you tell I'm particularly... No, it's very, very important. Don't create your podcast or whatever starting off as if you're a gatekeeper, right? Never do that. Make your podcast and your channel feel like it is open, it is inviting. We love the Nets. And if you love the Nets, you come on in here. I don't care if you started loving the Nets, back when the Russian oligarch guy used to own them, whatever his name is. Well, I can't forget what that Russian owner's name was. But if you started loving them back then, or if you just started loving them because Harden came over, if you just started loving the Nets because James Harden came, whatever it is, we love the Nets here. And if you love the Nets, you are welcome here. Let's talk about the Nets, right? Make sure you're a fan welcoming kind of place. Make sure you're a fan welcoming kind of place. So what you're really asking is, can you make a podcast about one team? What you're asking is, can you make a podcast or a YouTube channel about a very specific thing? And the answer to that is absolutely yes. You absolutely can. You know, there are YouTube channels that I watch that are only about iPads. That's it, just iPads. That's all this dude ever talks about is iPads and the best apps on the iPads and the best accessory for iPads. And that's all he does his channel on. And he gets like 30, 40, 50,000 views a video. And all he talks about, he doesn't talk about other Apple products. He doesn't talk about MacBooks. He doesn't talk about iMacs. He doesn't talk about the iPhone. He just talks about iPads. So yeah, absolutely. And if anything else, having a more defined topic, like a really refined topic, like one particular sports team, yeah, you limit a little bit what your audience will be because, people who aren't fans of the Nets aren't going to listen to it, but you become all the more appealing to those people who are fans of the Nets, right? So absolutely, you make your podcast about the Nets. You make your YouTube channel about being a Nets fan and stuff like that. Absolutely, because while it may not appeal to everybody, it will be very appealing to a particular demographic. So that's a good way to go. So yes, I highly encourage that. Just again, K Major, get rid of this. Get bandwagon fan out of your vocabulary right now. Just get rid of it or don't even bother starting. Because there's nothing potential new fans hate more than pretentious, we're a gatekeeper attitude. So just get that out of your vocabulary right now. And I think you've got a great idea. I think you got a terrific idea. All right, next up. Kung Fu Hot Dog writes, hey, John, what is your advice for somebody, me, who is starting to experience YouTube burnout? In your opinion, how long would you give it before calling it a day on YouTube? Thanks in advance. Kung Fu Hot Dog, that is you know why I love that question? I'll tell you why I love that question. I love that question because it is a self-aware question. It is and the people I really enjoy helping most are people who are very self-aware of what's going on. I would say we all hit points of burnout. Like in 2020, last year during the pandemic, around June or July, some of you will remember this, I was getting incredibly burned out. I was working 12 to 16 hours a day on my YouTube channel, and I was trying to get my documentary made all at the same time. And around June or July of last year, I just said, time out. And I took like 3 weeks off. Now I made the odd open mic video, like I made a couple of those, but really for the most part, I took 3 weeks off. Some of you guys will remember that. And because I needed to do that, you need to recognize when you're getting ready to burn out. Now listen, I want to go back to what we were talking about near the beginning of this video, and this is why this is important. The two questions, how much time do I actually have to give to this YouTube channel and how much money? The reason I say ask these things is because if we have unrealistic expectations, then we will much easier start to become burned out. We will start to become disillusioned. We will start to become frustrated. Be realistic. If you only have, and be realistic, if you're trying to commit 5 hours a week to doing a YouTube channel, but realistically you only have like 2.5 hours a week, change your habits. Go back to only putting 2.5 hours a week and then adjust your expectations. If your expectation is you're trying to make a career out of YouTube and you're hitting that wall and nothing's happening, then yeah, understand I'm probably not going to be able to make a career out of this and back off. But if your purpose of making a YouTube channel is to have fun, connect with other fans, as a place for creative expression, then just examine how much time you're dedicating, reassess what your realistic expectations should be about how much content you put out, when you put it out, and how many people you expect to watch it. Adjust those expectations and you will start to have much more fun again. You will start to have much more fun, but it starts with doing an honest assessment of how much time do I realistically have, and then what are my realistic expectations for how many people are going to watch it and how good my videos are. And If you're trying to make it a career and you're getting nowhere, then yeah, then step away from that. Get away from that. Revert back to just doing it for fun and joy and connecting with other fans. And if that's not what you're interested in, then don't do YouTube. And there's nothing wrong with that. And if you gave it a go, you gave it a go. Yeah, but I would definitely say, Kung Fu, that it starts with an honest assessment of how much time you realistically have and setting realistic expectations. Because you just think, I'm going to start, I work a full-time job, but I'm still going to put in 8 hours a day and I expect to get 20,000 views of video. Well, you're going to find yourself getting very frustrated very quickly. But if you can reassess and then readjust, I think you're going to have more fun. And if it's still not working for you, then take a break from it. You know, maybe like I needed a break back in 2020. I needed a break. I stepped back. I took 3 weeks off from it. Maybe you need to step away from it for 3 months or 6 months. You know, refresh yourself, do a self-evaluation about how much time do I really have? What do I really want to get out of doing a YouTube channel? And then maybe start it back up again and you'll find it to be a lot more enjoyable. But only you can answer those questions. And I hope I've just been able to point you in the right direction at any rate, man. Good luck on that. I really appreciate that. All right, next up. And again, excellent self-aware question, Kung Fu. Really appreciate that. Comic Quirks with Jimmy writes, how do I make an attracting thumbnail? You mean a good thumbnail? You know what? That is, I see a lot of videos about how to make a great thumbnail. Different things will appeal to different people. My whole thing about the thumbnail, now I don't do most of my own thumbnails. My brother-in-law, Ray, does most of our thumbnails and he does a great job. But sometimes I have to send his thumbnails back to him and say, we need to do this again. Because as long as your thumbnail clearly communicates what it is your video is about, then it's fine. You'll hear some people say you have to have text on your thumbnail. You'll hear some people say you have to have making a shocking face. We've all seen those YouTube thumbnails, right? Like, we tried out the new iPhone and it's amazing. Right? We've all seen those thumbnails, right? And we all think they're stupid, right? I may or may not have done a couple of those thumbnails myself. But, you know, you won't believe what Kathleen Kennedy said about the upcoming Star Wars. Right? They all do it. They all do it. So yeah, I mean, that's the key thing. So it's really the only real rule I have about thumbnails, because a lot of the rest of it is all subjective. You're going to hear different YouTube experts who are much more experts on this than me. You're going to hear different YouTube experts give way different things. You got to have big, bold text on your thumbnail. You got to have no text on your thumbnail. The only rule I have when I'm talking to Ray about what should be in a thumbnail is make sure the thumbnail clearly shows what it is the topic is about. And if that means text, use text. If it doesn't mean text, don't. But also, here's a big important rule about thing. I often have to go back to Ray about this because Ray's so artistic. I often tell Ray, remember that when people see the thumbnail, they're not seeing a big image. They're seeing a little thing scrolling on their screen. So if you're going to put Star-Lord in a thumbnail, don't make Star-Lord this big in the image. Make sure Star-Lord fills the image, because when the people see the thumbnail scrolling, it's going to be like this big, not this big. So make sure your subject, whatever your subject is, whether your subject is text, whether your subject is a person, whether your subject is an object, make sure your subject is primary in the thumb, and just make sure your thumbnail communicates what the video is about. And then other than that, you find what works for you. Because I've seen a lot of different people use a lot of different types of thumbnails, and they've all had different degrees of success. So you just find what works for you. All right. Next up, Scott Free writes, what are some of the big changes you've seen in the evolution of online film discourse during your career, and how has it influenced the way the public engages with content, both from online creators and from Hollywood? Well, I mean, this goes all the way back to the blogging days. I mean, it really does. There's actually a Time magazine. Let me see if I can find it for you. I'm not sure I got it here. Time magazine I'm not sure I'm going to be able to find this, but I will see if I can. Where is it? Anyway, like I said, this goes all the way back to the blogging days. Oh, here it is. Okay. Yeah. So back when we were blogging, right? Back when I was doing the movie blog, was right around the beginning time that the studio started to recognize that there was a new breed of influencer, which was the online pundits, right? And Time Magazine actually did an article on me, and there I am. This is a long time ago. This is like 12 years ago, I think. And the name of the article was "Boys Who Love Toys, There's an Unlikely New Superpower in the World of Film." And they go on to talk about, how now Hollywood studios were suddenly kind of paying attention to the online pundits. Whether they should have been listening to the online pundits is a completely different story. I mean, that's a completely different story. Horse of a different color, as they might say, right? So but that showed, so all the way back to about 12 years ago, studios starting to pay attention to it, and it's still kind of a thing today. Now, how specifically we've seen some of the evolution of online film discourse, it's kind of also a reflection of what we see in film fandom in general, right? Like, we see the explosion of hate sites, those come and go, whatever. But that's also just an extension of the fact that film fandom today is very much a 10, 10, 10, 10, 0, 0, 0. Like, everything to everybody now online is either a perfect 10 or an absolute 0. And that has kind of become reflective in a lot of the YouTube channels that come out now. But here's the thing. What we watch and talk about and all that kind of stuff. The great thing about the online presence, specifically in the movie community, is that things like YouTube and other advancements in technology with online communications and social media discourse is the fact that it is now easier than ever for online fans to connect with each other. Now, sometimes that's used for very negative things, and sometimes that's used by certain people in very toxic ways. But at the same time, it's also really opened the door for community and a lot more connection between each other. So that's something you got to try to take advantage of as well. And again, the influence continues to grow. I mean, because listen, 10 years ago, why the flippin' F would, well, sorry, I was going to tell you something I'm not allowed to tell you yet. So I'm going to keep that. Sorry. I almost said something I wasn't supposed to. Self-censorship. That almost said something I'm not allowed to do that. So anyway, but this is a discussion, Scott. I mean, it's a great question, but it's literally a discussion we could sit here and talk for 5 hours about. But I would say that, yes, we have seen a growing evolution in the influence that the online world has with studios in general. And I think one of the primary things that we've seen as a growing opportunity for fans to connect with each other. And by fans connect to each other, I mean even people like me. Like, I'm a fan, and that allows me, this platform has allowed me to connect with tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of other fans around the world. So it's that kind of connection that's been one of the biggest influences at any rate. Anyway, great question, Scott. All right, next up. Skellywags TV writes, I started a toy channel in January. That's a huge deal. Toy channels are a huge business on YouTube. I've seen some creators suffer from burnout and mental health issues. Do you have any advice to help avoid this? Again, I'm just going to right back to what Kung Fu was talking about a little bit earlier. Do an honest evaluation of the amount of time and resources you have to put into your channel. Make realistic expectations about what you hope to get out of it. And then gauge and measure yourself accordingly. One of the first signs of burnout in YouTube is when you stop having fun. You're not burned out yet when you stop having fun. But when it's no longer enjoyable and you're not having fun, that's the first warning sign. And before I took 3 weeks off back last summer, I probably around May, because around the end of June is when I took my 3 weeks off, but it was around in early May that I started realizing that I didn't even want to do my show. It's like, I got to do the show today. And that's not me. Like I wake up, I'm not lying. I wake up every day, get to do a show today. Can't wait. I do. I get very excited. I'm happy. I love doing my show. It's a hell of a lot of work, but I love doing it. And I'm excited, especially when I know how much work goes into every single episode of the show that we do. And now that I put in those 10 hours, 12 hours of work for it, now we actually get to do the fun part. We get to do the show. But I found last May, when I was starting to really burn out, the first warning sign was it wasn't fun anymore. And then after it wasn't fun anymore, I found myself starting to try to come up with excuses to not do my show on certain days. These stories aren't all that great. I just won't do a show today. So I went from not having fun to then making excuses to myself why I shouldn't bother doing a show. And then it started to affect other things. Then I really started recognizing I wasn't sleeping. I was all that kind of stuff. So I would say the first warning sign is when you're not enjoying it anymore. When that happens, stop what you're doing, sit down, do a serious reassessment. And if you need to step away from a little bit, step away from a little bit. Sometimes just reducing your workload isn't enough. Sometimes you really just need to say, I need to put the brakes on for a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months, and then I'll come back to it. Reassess, re-engage, refresh, renew, recharge. Just make sure you're in a better place and you have more realistic expectations of what you expect to get out of it and a more realistic assessment of what you have to put into it. But the first warning sign for me is when you're not having fun anymore. All right, great question, Scallywags. All right, next up. Kung Fu Hot Dog writes, hi again, John. How do you feel when you've made what you know was a great video, but only get a few views? Cheers from the UK. Oh, it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. No lie. No lie about it. I'll give you guys a great example of this. Let me see if I can bring this up. I'll give you guys a great example. These videos right here. These ones, Movies in 20. I think these videos are great. I'm not going to be false modest. I think these videos are great. I love Movies in 20. I love Movies in 20. But look at the views. My Mystery Men one got 14,000 views. Last Starfighter got 12,000 views. Gladiator got 8.8 thousand views. And here's the thing. I know for a lot of a lot of people go, oh my God, I would give my left nut to get 8,000 views of a video. Cool. But it literally was a week's worth of work between myself. I mean, for the Gladiator one, it was like 2 weeks of putting that damn thing together. 2 weeks. I mean, between writing the script, proofing it, finalizing it, giving it to Ray, the image capturing, the editing, all that kind of stuff. It was weeks of work. And we don't have, an abundance of resources and time to put weeks of effort or even 3 or 4 days of work into a video that's going to get 10,000 views. And it's devastating. It's devastating. It totally is. Broke my heart when I realized nobody watches these things. Damn it. And I love those videos. But it's the same was true when I was at AMC and stuff like that. Like we used to do a show called AMC Rewind, right? But nobody watched it. And it was a great show. It was a really good show. Not enough people watched it. We used to do the show called AMC Versus. Before Screen Junkies did movie fights, we had AMC Versus. And it was great. Nobody watched it. We did a lot of videos and movies or types of shows that a lot of people did watch, but that means we did things. But here's the thing. This is another good lesson for doing YouTubing. I'm going to say this. Another basic rule I'm going to say is this. I'm going to say, try new things and be willing to move on from them if they don't work. So that's a key thing that's been a key to part of my limited success that I've had over the last number of years, is that never be afraid to try new things and then be ready to recognize if something you're trying isn't working, move on to the next thing. Because here's the thing. If you just digging your heels on something that isn't working, you're going to be, and then you're just going to get frustrated, and then you're always going to be afraid to try new things. If you just get frustrated and dig in your heels and just hit your head against the wall on something that's not working, then you're always going to be afraid to try new things because you don't want to have that experience again. But if you are willing and self-aware enough to say, you know what? I tried this thing. I love it. But for whatever reason, it's not working. It is time to move on from it. If you always have that attitude, you're going to waste less time, you're going to be less frustrated, and you're going to be quicker to get to the next idea that will work, right? So yeah, the answer to the question is, how does it feel when you make something you're really proud of and it doesn't get the audience you want it to have? It's heartbreaking, but it's part of the job. And you just got to accept that and be ready to move on to the next idea. So that's pretty key. All right, next up. Peter Cunnington writes, how do I stand out when I have a similar topic? Again, it's all about you. You is what makes your videos unique. Yes, somebody else is going to be talking about the fact that Apple has a launch event on the 20th. If you do a thing about computers or Apple or whatever, that's your thing. Yes, every other Apple YouTuber is going to be talking about that. But what is unique is you, your voice, your perspective. You know, come up with interesting ways to present, even just different ways of presenting your perspective and your insight and your analysis. But always make sure to lean into you. You are the most unique thing about your channel and your videos. So that's what I usually go back to. Caleb Crane writes, why do you do tip questions and not live callers? Because I can't, well, live callers, you just can't do it. I would need to have full-time people here to organize the calls. I would need to have somebody screening the calls and all that kind of stuff. And like people are calling into what? I just want to talk about my fish. We're not here to talk about your fish. Next caller. I mean, you know what I mean? Live callers is a bad idea. I've had a lot of YouTubers say, hey, I'm thinking about taking live callers. Bad idea. Because you need to have a full-time staff to screen all the callers. You're just asking for trouble. And by the way, other viewers don't want to hear viewers' calls. You know? So the live tips, they kill two birds with one stone. I used to at AMC and Collider just take random Twitter questions. The problem is we would get 5,000 questions a second and our Twitter thing would scroll like this. And then everybody get pissed off that we didn't pick their questions and it was just stupid. By taking tip questions, people are very deliberate about what they write in. It limits the amount of questions that get sent in and it guarantees somebody that they do have a question as long as it's applicable. They do have a question, it gets answered. It's far more effective, far more efficient, far more valuable, and it actually helps support the channel at the same time. So absolutely, live callers is a terrible idea. Terrible, terrible, terrible idea. All right, anyway, next up, Tracy McVale writes, thank you, John. I'm a fellow lifelong film fan. I've been following you and your career for nearly 10 years. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. I appreciate you and how hard you work and bring significant value to our community. Thanks. Oh, man, listen, it's always so great when somebody just wants to write in and say something supportive. So thank you, Trey, for being along for the ride. I mean, if you've been around for 10 years, that means you go all the way back to the movie blog days, man. So thank you for being on this journey with me, and I appreciate the message, man, a lot. Thank you. Josie Reviews writes, do those noise-canceling boards in the background good for bedrooms as well? Yes. And listen, let's be clear here. I'm glad you bring it up. Guys, be aware of your audio. One of the best things you can do for your audio, besides getting a decent microphone, you don't need a super expensive microphone, just a half decent microphone. You know, you can spend 50, 60 bucks on a decent USB microphone. But one of the best things you can do is do a little bit of sound treatment to your room. These sound panels that I put up in the wall, because this room sounded like an echo chamber. Like, bam, 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 bam. It was terrible. I bought these sound panels. Now these are expensive ones. You don't have to get the same ones I do. These ones are kind of expensive, but it made the sound in this room so beautifully dead, just dead flat sound. It's so great. You don't hear echo anymore, but you don't need to do that. You can get very cheap, like, sound absorbing foam that you can buy online. I mean, it's not as good as this, but it will definitely do the job. Also, you know, those curtains back there, those aren't for design. Those curtains are sound absorbing curtains. So I already had those. So instead of spending like $400 or $500 more for more sound panels there, I just hung those curtains up because those are sound echo absorbing things. Do a little bit of work. Listen, you can do it very cheaply, but absolutely do something to deaden the sound and remove some of the echo in the sound in your room. Whether that's putting down a carpet, whether that means putting some furniture in your room, anything you can get in there to absorb that sound, it'll make your audio sound a hell of a lot better. Definitely do something like that. So that's an excellent question, man. Excellent question. All right. Man Mountain Gherkin 23 writes, my favorite YouTubers have one thing in common. Whether that is Van Urban Camping, I actually think I've watched that channel, or a travel vlog, is that those things were a part of their lives before YouTube's success. Is there anything to that? Absolutely. Absolutely. Like, here's the thing. Let's go back to the cycling example. If you try to do a YouTube channel about cycling, you don't know the first damn thing about cycling, the audience, the viewers are going to know really fast. You're going to get exposed really fast. If you try to do what I do, and you take live questions for 2 hours about movies, if I don't have some kind of basis, like a really good film repertoire in my belt, and have a pretty good solid understanding of film and the history of film, that's going to get exposed really quick, like really fast. So absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. Talk about things that are in your wheelhouse. Like if you're going to do an Apple product kind of YouTube channel, make sure you've been a big Apple product enthusiast for a while. If you love fish and you have like lots of aquariums, and then do a YouTube channel about that. Make a YouTube channel about the things that you love, because the things that you love are things you're going to naturally know a lot more about anyway. And again, YouTube audiences are becoming a lot more refined. They will tell from a mile away. If you know, I know I once had, I'm not going to name names. I once had a staff person who interviewed really well and kind of fooled us for a little while that they knew something about movies. But after they were on the channel for a little while, it started to become really obvious they didn't. And the audience started recognizing it. And once the audience recognizes you don't actually know anything about what you're talking about, not that the audience has to agree with your opinions or not agree with your opinions, but that you don't actually have a fundamental idea of what it is you're talking about, they're going to abandon you pretty quick. So yeah, that's why one of the really good things is, make sure, try to make a YouTube channel about things you're already naturally passionate about. So I think that's a good point for that. Good thing to bring up, Man Mountain Gherkin. Good thing to bring up. Absolutely. All right. 3C Films writes, thank you, John. I've been watching you for close to 10 years now and have learned so much about the industry from just listening to you all these years. Thank you so much, dude. Again, that also puts you back in the movie blog days, man. It educated me enough to go full-time on YouTube. It did take 5 years of persistence. Well, listen, man, good on you. That is awesome. I think it is one of the reasons I like to do these videos is because I believe that more people need to add their voices to these online communities. More people should be starting YouTube channels. Yes, the vast majority of you won't be able to make it a full-time career per se, but I think there's a lot of value for personal enrichment and for the community as a whole. And hey, who knows? 1 out of every 100 might be able to make it a full-time career. Great, bonus, fantastic. But I think that's awesome, 3C Films. Very proud of you, man. And again, thank you for being around for all that time. It's been a very long journey getting to where we are now, and I really appreciate that people like you following me that long have made that journey possible. So thank you so much for that, dude. All right, Tortellini at Noon. I like that username, writes. One of two. We are mainly a podcast, but we have been thinking of incorporating more video content. It's a good idea. How would you suggest us starting? Number one, by uploading our past 192 episodes and any future ones. Two, or just highlights and focus more on creating specific content for the channels and keep the actual full podcast episodes from YouTube. That is a great question. You know, I've played around with that idea myself a little bit. I'm not going to lie. and I'll tell you how this connects to what it is you're asking about, Tortellini. There was a period of time. Do you guys remember about a year and a half ago, maybe it was 2 years ago now, where it was like YouTube was about to go into Armageddon because of like videos made for kids. You got to demonetize your videos, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, you could be fined $100,000. Remember when all that nonsense was going on? Anyway, I got kind of paranoid about that, and I got a little bit freaked out about it. And I started thinking about taking my channel off of YouTube. I thought about taking my channel off of YouTube. I thought about, now you guys know we have a Patreon campaign, and we have wonderful Patreon supporters. I thought for a little while about making my daily John Campea show a 2-hour daily show and making it exclusive for our Patreon supporters, and then putting up just a couple of quick clips of it up on the YouTube channel, just a couple of quick clips. So there are videos there for people to watch, but also point people, say, hey, if you want a 2-hour version of this every day, become a Patreon supporter and come and watch over at the Patreon channel. The reason I bring that up is because it's the same kind of principle what you're asking. Should you take your entire podcast and put it up on YouTube? Or should you just take segments of your podcast, video parts, and put that up on YouTube? Both have their positives and their negatives. I kind of like the idea of just putting up segments. Like if you do an hour-long podcast, let's say, for example, you're talking about, let's say you're that other guy, I think, I can't remember who was that sent it in earlier, who was talking about doing a podcast or a YouTube channel simply on the New Jersey Nets. Okay, great. So you're doing a show on the Nets, and you got an hour-long weekly show that's a podcast. Set up a camera. It can be anything. It can even be, a cheap little webcam, and just also video yourself doing the podcast. And then what I would do, let's say you did this great little segment talking about Kevin Durant's injury. All right. And you talked for about 5 minutes about the Kevin Durant injury and how that might impact their position in the playoffs going into the playoffs. Well, take that segment and put that every day, put a segment up on YouTube. People can find that video and watch the video. And if they really like the video, make sure you have a little tag at the end saying, hey, to hear our full show, come on over, search for us on iTunes or Spotify or whatever, to the Nets This Week podcast. So you get views on YouTube, but you're also using that as marketing for your actual source, which is your podcast, to drive people there. But again, there are pros and cons to both. Put up the full, just set up a webcam, record yourself doing it and put it up on YouTube. If you want, there are many advantages to that, or just put up a couple of segments. I mean, I think or what you could do, Tortellini, is play around with it a bit. Maybe do one for 6 months and then try another for 6 months. Give yourself like a year to play around with it. And then if one works significantly better than the other, then just go with that. But I think it's a terrific idea that you're thinking about there. Oh, Emad is just pointing out a great example of that. Yeah, Emad in the live chat, Joe Rogan. That's exactly what Joe Rogan does, right? So that's a good example of that as well. Anyway, let's move on here. Next up, we got the movie guy writes, what is the best software to use for intros? Well, I mean, there is no one best software. It depends how you know what the best thing to do for an intro is, honestly? Fiverr. Just go to Fiverr. If you guys don't know what Fiverr is, Fiverr is a great talent pool, right? It's a great talent pool. Let me see if I can get logged in here. Right. It's a great talent pool where you just go onto Fiverr and there's like motion graphic artists and Photoshop artists and everything you can imagine. And you just say, hey, I've got a job. I want a 10-second intro made for my show. And you put that up there as a job. A bunch of motion graphics people will see it and they'll respond to you saying, hey, we could do it. I could do this job for you for this amount of money or for that amount. And it's relatively inexpensive and you can get some good stuff done. So if you don't already know how to use DaVinci Resolve Fusion, or if you don't already know how to use After Effects, going and using Fiverr, and that's Fiverr, Fiverr.com. Fiverr.com. I would recommend going and trying that. Or you can just find an artist on there that you think you want to work with. You can try that. Or you can just post it and they'll bid on it, right? So that's a really good thing to do. Because if you want to get some pretty decent effect and you've not used After Effects and stuff like that before, that's a good way to go. All right, thanks for that, movie guy. Next up, Mukbang Reviews writes, I joined late. Sorry if this is repetitive, but I am curious about how you find people to be on your channel. How do you vet and ensure they're right for your audience? Kim, Aaron, Robert Meyer Burnett, Chris, and every guests are amazing. Yeah, listen, I am very, very, very particular about who I bring on my show. I'm very particular about who I bring on my show. I have been ever since the AMC days. Because who you have on your show is a reflection on you. So you've got to be careful about who you bring on your show and bring on your videos, right? So with Robert Meyer Burnett, that was easy. I had already been working with him. You know, I created this show called Heroes, and I put John Schnepp in charge of it, right? I told him, like, I created the show and I said, you got to run this show. I got too much stuff I'm doing and you're going to be great at this. And you know more about comic books than I do. So you're the guy. Now that meant allowing him to pick his guests. But I did tell him, remember, whoever you bring on is going to be a reflection of the show, of you, and of our whole company. So be careful who you pick. And he already knew Robert Meyer Burnett. Him and Robert Meyer Burnett had a long relationship, so he brought him on. So I started working with Robert on Heroes with John Schnepp. So I worked with him for a couple of years. So when he was no longer going to be working with Collider, it was just a no-brainer. I just got a hold of Robert. He and I got along great. He knows his stuff. He's an expert in the field. And I'm like, hey, do you want to come do the show with me? And he was like, hell yes. Erin Cummings, easy. I've known Erin for 10 years. She's a professional actress in the industry, a working professional actress in films and television. She has a great perspective, and I know she's a great communicator. Easy. For a lot of other people, like the great Ashley Mova or Sinead DeFries or Chris Carr, I audition people. I put out a casting call in Los Angeles, and I put up a posting saying, I am looking for somebody for this. Here's what we're looking for. You have to be good at this, this, and this. Submit a resume with an audition reel and blah, blah, blah. And I would literally get 500, 800, 1,200 resumes sent to me. And I took that process very, very seriously. And then I would go through, I would select out of those 1,200 resumes, I would select maybe 20 that we would invite in to interview and do an on-camera test with us in the studio. And then we would go through that process and we'd narrow it down to 5. And this is, back when we still had Amy Rose Eisenbach and Dennis Zen, I would say, hey, you guys, Dennis and Amy Rose, you interview them first and then you send them to me because I want to see how each of us feel about them separately. So they go through different stages of the interviews and all that kind of stuff. And then, so I took it very damn seriously. And you should take it seriously. Make sure it's somebody you vetted. Make sure it's somebody you know. Make sure it's somebody you trust. Make sure it's somebody that brings a certain level of expertise because, again, fairly or unfairly, whoever you have on your videos is going to be a reflection on you and your channel, right? So just keep that in mind. But yeah, it is a very, very important thing. So that's the process I go through, Mukbang. Anyway, great question. Thank you for asking. I hope I answered it well. All right. Cambo Steve writes, hey, John, I use an Electro Voice, right? The RE320, man. I almost got that mic. I did. When I was going through my mic search, I landed on the Rode Procaster, and I'm very comfortable with it. But that Electro Voice mic is money. A lot of radio stations use that mic. It's a money mic. You use a Rode Procaster, and a popular mic is the SM7B. Yes. Is there a mic out there that you think is slept on? I'll tell you what. If today I didn't already have these microphones, if I didn't already have these Rode Procaster mics, and these go for about $250 a piece, right? If I didn't already have this mic, this is the mic I would get. The Rode Pod Mic. The Pod Mic, Podmic. Now, this is by the same company that makes my mics, but this mic is $100. It's $99. It's less than half the cost of this mic. Is there a sound difference between the two of them? Yes, but 99% of your listeners will not be able to distinguish between the Procaster mic and the Pod Mic. These are, I'm just telling you right now, I've already got 4 of these Procaster mics. So I am keeping the Procaster mics. I'm just saying, if I was just starting out today and I had to get mics today and I had a little bit of money to spend and I didn't just need to get like a USB mic or whatever, I would absolutely get the Pod Mics. They have gorgeous sound. The bang for your buck that you get for these Pod Mics is wonderful. And I think a lot of people sleep on these mics. Go look up online. Go look up sound comparisons of the Rode Pod Mic for $99. It's an incredible value. So that's probably what I would go with if I didn't already have these ones. All right. Anyway, thanks for that, Campbell. But hey, man, the Electro Voice mics are sweet mics. Anyway, okay, next up. Where are we at? We're at Hazem Gorab, who just sends in a super chat. Thank you, Hazem. Dylan Foreman writes, what are some good options for cameras for vlog type videos? My desk is set up, but I need a camera for my out and about videos. Honestly, hold on a second. Let me bring up an image here. Just give me a second. It may not be completely in your price range right now, depending on what you want. But I have never been a GoPro guy, but I did go out and get the GoPro Hero 9. I believe this is the 9, the newest one, the GoPro Hero 9. It's the one that has a camera, a screen on the front. So when you're doing selfie, you can actually see your picture here and a screen on the back, right? I find, and I got this great little thing with it, so I can, extend it, tilt it like this so I can, do my thing. It's great for steady. But honestly, but you can also use the GoPro. Here's the great thing about the GoPros. You can also use the GoPros as web cameras. You can hook up these things to your computer utilizing a capture card. You use it, you go with the HDMI out. Or you can use, actually, I think you can use USB-C on this as well to capture. Or you can use the HDMI out, set this up, and use it as your webcam in, and then you slap it on a little, this thing cost me like $25, this stand, this hand grip, and it's a stand because the legs come down. See, it's got these 3 legs, so it can be a tripod, and you can take it out and use it for your out and about things. They're about $300 or $400, so they're not super cheap, but with the versatility of these things, this is a great option. And like I said, the really nice thing about it is, if you don't want to buy a separate camera like my A6400s, you can use this as both your main camera inside and use it as your out and about camera on the outside. So if you're looking for good value, and I'm all about value, I would say invest in a little bit of a GoPro because it really works out well. And I see Kimberly Curran is in the live chat. Hey, Kimberly, good to have her here. She does a great job on our companion videos, obviously. All right, next up. Alex's Movie Corner writes, hey, John, I started my channel in October, and it's been one of the most rewarding, fulfilling things ever. If anyone is having doubts, just do it. And yes, this is the beautiful thing about YouTube, man. Do it. If you don't like it, stop doing it. It's not like once you start up using YouTube, you sign a lifelong contract. Just, I mean, at the risk of, pulling a do it. But seriously, just get out there and do it. Thank you for encouraging people to do that, Alex. Next up, Hank Jones writes. Where'd Hank Jones go? There he is. Hank Jones writes, I bought an iPad Air 4 and a $50 stylus for drawing on it and post a time-lapse video. You mean a time-lapse video? A time-lapse video, YouTube and other social media, and I don't know if I should post them immediately or build up my portfolio and then start posting. Well, I'm not sure exactly on what it is. I mean, you build up your portfolio by putting them online. Are you saying like, do I just wait till I have about 20 of them and then start posting them? You know what? I don't think you need to wait. I say post them as you do them. I mean, there can be some advantages, Hank, to waiting till you build up a portfolio. But then what happens once you post all of your portfolio? Well, then you got to wait a few months while you build up more. I would say release them as you go. Because one of the cool things is it also lets people follow your journey and follow your progress as you go. So I think it's a good, valid question, but I would say put them up as you go. And if you're finding that doesn't work for you, then change a little bit later. But I think, by the way, I love stuff. Like I said, I've got a friend named James. He is the box office artist. He's great on YouTube. He's fantastic. He's drawn several things for me that I have in my house. And he does stuff like that. I say post them as you go, man, and have your portfolio online grow as you grow as well. So that would be my recommendation. Try that out. And by the way, do me a favor, Hank. If you do start posting them, write to me at john@thejohncampeashow.com and tell me where I can see them, because I'm a big fan of people who can draw, so I would love to see that. All right. Everborn Saga writes, what camera and mic do you use? Also, any lighting kit recommendations? Well, obviously, I've already gone through my cameras. I use the Sony a6400 cameras. I got 4 of them around the studio here. For webcams, I use Logitech's. This one right here isn't a Logitech because I got my Logitech just being used by Ann right now. This is an eMeet camera. That's actually not bad. This eMeet camera isn't too bad, but it's not as good as the Logitech 9200. The mics I use are the Rode Procasters. Lighting kits, I mean, I've used many, many different types of lighting kits, and I'll switch over to the camera again. So you can see I've got camera lights there and there. These are flat panel lights, LED lights. I'm trying to remember the brand name of them. You know what? I cannot remember the brand name. Give me one quick second. I'm going to go and look up the name of the brand. Hold on. The brand name is, I should have remembered that. The brand name is Nanlite. Nanlite, Nanlite. These lights are actually pretty reasonable. I actually use these lights to shoot my movie for my documentary. And these only run about $100 a piece. Now you can get cheaper lights that will do a very good job too, but I use the Nan lights. Again, I just say, put one, a key light, a fill light. I don't even have a backlight because I have some overhead lights that kind of put the glow on the top of my head and stuff like that. A lot of people say you got to have a 3-point lighting system. I've got overhead lights, so I just put up a key and a fill light here. As you can tell, I am beautifully lit. Look at me. Look how beautiful I am. Oh my God. Look at that. Anyway, but the lighting is great, right? And I didn't spend a ton of money on them. Some people say, oh, you got to buy this whatever key light for $700. And you know what? I put like $200 into these lights and they work great for me. Anyway, so hopefully you find that helpful. All right, next up, Jason Nelson writes, hey, John, have you ever been to VidCon? Do you recommend? I have been to VidCon. No, I don't recommend it. Honestly, I went to VidCon once because my buddies, the Fine Brothers, they had an extra pass and they just say, hey, you want to come? I'm like, yeah, sure. I'll go to VidCon because like Benny and Rafi, the Fines, they're like huge superstars at VidCon. Anyway. So I go, but really, I was like, me and Corey, they had an extra pass Corey had a pass already. So, my friend Corey. So she came with me and Dennis came too. Dennis had a pass too. So me, Dennis, Zen, and Corey, went, and I was expecting like Comic-Con for YouTubers, but it was like a preschool. And I don't mean to sound insulting or anything, not at all. But it was like a preschool. And we're like, why does it feel like this would be a pedophile's stalking ground? It was all these little children. And it was like 90%. All the booths we went to was like 90% of them was makeup tutorial booths. And me, Dennis, and Corey were just like, why do we feel like we just don't belong here? Like this, we just don't belong here. So honestly, I mean, it depends on what you're into, I suppose, but I didn't personally get anything out of going to VidCon myself, but listen, it's a big event. A lot of people clearly do get something out of going to it and enjoy it. It just gets bigger every year. So look into it yourself. But if you're asking if I would personally recommend it, the answer is probably not. All right. Let's see here. That was Jason. Michael Brandy writes, what tech would you use to record retro games on the TV for a channel? Retro means SNES, PS1, etc. I mean, what you would need to do is get a capture card that can specifically capture the type of output that's coming out of whatever your game system is. And then something preferably with a HDMI pass-through that will then go and connect to your TV as well. If you go onto Amazon, if you know specifically the type of connectors, depending on what game system you're talking about, you're going to want to get a box that will take the input from the gaming device, have a USB then go to your computer, but will also have what's called a pass-through to then send to the TV as well. There are many different types of brands and things like that. You're going to look for a capture box with pass-through. That's the key phrase. So you should go and check that out. Go and check that out. You should be able to find something. And when you're searching, put in if the specific system you're using. Like if you're using a PS1 or a Super Nintendo, put that in your search as well, and you should find many ones. But again, it's important. Find something that's got pass-through as well. Find something that's pass-through as well. All right, next up, we've got Hazem Gorab writes, hey, John, how do I make sure that my channel would have a good lifespan? I truly appreciate you making this video. Thanks, dude. Well, honestly, dude, I'm not quite sure what you mean by a good lifespan. I'm not trying to avoid your question. I just honestly don't know what you mean by lifespan. Like, how do I make sure that you have a long career doing it? If you're asking that, go back to the original 6 questions. Understand why you want to be a YouTuber. Understand, let me bring these up again. Why you want to be a YouTuber, number 1. What is your YouTube channel about? Why would somebody want to watch your channels? How much time do you have to give? How much finances have to give? And what are your personal strengths? If you're always reevaluating that will probably ensure you can go for a long time. If you're asking about how do I make sure people want to keep watching your videos, make sure you make evergreen content. I don't make a lot of evergreen content. Like most of my content is relevant for about 3 or 4 days, and then it's not relevant anymore. Like me doing a piece of news on there's a new Star Trek movie coming. Well, no one's going to be looking up videos on that 2 weeks from now, but try to make good evergreen content that people can go and watch anytime. I hope that answers your question, man. I hope that answers your question. All right. Nick Barley writes, 1 of 2. I'm going to Full Sail for digital cinematography. Excellent. I hear good things about Full Sail. And I'm slowly learning how to implement aspects of film into my YouTube videos. Good. Do you think education like this can help elevate the quality of my videos? I'm working on a mini documentary right now for school, and I want to upload it when I'm finished to gauge it. Absolutely. Listen, the more you know about filming, about lighting, about sound, these are all transferable. That's all transferable knowledge to making your YouTube videos even better. I mean, look, you're not going to Full Sail to make YouTube talking head videos like this one, but any types of videos you are creating at Full Sail, you can put those up, but also, again, the lessons you're learning are transferable. I've learned a lot about lighting over the years, and I've learned a lot about cinematography over the years, and I've learned a lot about audio over the years. So I am bringing a lot of that to doing my sort of thing. That's why my channel looks better and sounds better than a lot of other channels. And there are channels that look better and sound better than mine because they just have a better grip of it. But I'm able to bring those lessons over, and you will absolutely be able to do that. That is absolutely transferable knowledge, Nick. And I think that's a really great thing that you're doing. And good luck at Full Sail. Do let me know what your experience is like, because I've always heard it's a very, very good experience there. All right. Thanks for that, Nick. Next up, Mukbang Reviews writes, I like some of your videos that are now on hiatus, canceled, like Thoughts on Walks, Movies in 20. By the way, Thoughts on Walks is coming back. It's just that I went through my whole move and everything yet. I just haven't had a chance, not to mention I wasn't able to walk for a while, but Thoughts on Walks are coming back. I know it's based on views, but are there any other considerations when you end series like those? Well, again, Thoughts on Walks is not over. That is happening. But listen, it's fine if a video of mine gets like 3,000 views. as long as how much effort needed to go into getting those 3,000 views. If it was something that was very, very little effort was needed to make that thing, then 3,000 views is fine. If it took like 2 days of work to get 3,000 views, then it's about effort to output ratio. If only a little bit of effort was needed for an okay amount of views or an okay amount of output, well, then that works. If you've got a huge amount of effort required for only marginal output and views, well, then that's not good use of my time. I need to be putting my time, my energy, and my resources into things that get me a better ratio on return. So it's not just the view number, it's how much effort and resources needed to go into getting that view number. If it's a big view number and pretty big effort, that's a 1-to-1 ratio. I can live with that. But it's not just the view number, it's how is it in relation to the amount of effort that goes into it. And as long as you're always getting more than or enough output from the amount of effort needed to make that video, then you're okay. But like Movies in 20, that takes days of work to do a Movies in 20 to get like 10,000 views. That's just not enough. That's why we pulled the plug. But thoughts on walks. Thoughts on walks are coming back. Thoughts on walks are definitely coming back. All right. Next up, Nick Bradley. Oh, we already did Nick. All right. Scott Brett writes, 1 of 2. Hey, John, I want to start a YouTube/podcast channel, but I'm having trouble finding my niche. I love music, movies, video games, and nerdy stuff. But I'm having trouble deciding what direction I want to go. Do you have any suggestion on figuring out where to go from here? That's first of all, it's great that you're asking that question, Scott. Ultimately, you need to answer that. I would say this. Ask yourself, out of those things, music, movies, video games, and nerdy stuff, which one are you most comfortable talking about? Which one, if a conversation strikes up about any one of those topics, which one of those things do you think you'll be able to carry the conversation more effectively than the others? And I would say that would probably then be the one you should naturally gravitate towards. If you've got like a really firm, solid grip on the whole music scene right now, who's hot, who's not, what goes into the industry, I would say go towards that. If you're really dialed in and really tuned into the video game industry, I would say lean towards that. So I would say whichever one, let's say there are 4 conversations going on right now. A music conversation. What are the ones you suggested? A music conversation, a movie conversation, a video game conversation, or a general nerdy stuff conversation. Which one of those conversations do you feel you could walk into and feel most comfortable being able to carry that conversation? Whatever your answer is to that, I'd say that's your answer. That's the one you go for. That's kind of my take on it at any rate, man. So hopefully you find that helpful, and I hope you're able to find your answer to that. All right, next up, Peter Cunnington writes, saw you're making a channel about a topic. Say you're making a channel about a topic, but there's no more content available for that specific topic. Now, what do you do? I have no idea what you mean by that. What do you mean there's no more content about that topic? There's always content to talk about sports. There's always content to talk about technology. There's always content to talk about bikes or makeup or running shoes. So I'm not quite sure. Maybe something historical, like you want to talk about Milli Vanilli, and there's obviously no more content to talk about Milli Vanilli, where there's a whole history of Milli Vanilli that you can talk about. But yeah, that would become limited. Like you probably can't do 5 years worth of YouTube videos on Milli Vanilli. Sure. Well, then do it for a limited period of time and then move on to another topic. Say you want to do something like Milli Vanilli and do 2 months of videos on the history, growth, rise, and fall of Milli Vanilli. Almost like a mini documentary podcast, if you will. Do that, build your audience, and then go to the next thing. Now we're going to talk about, something else that's kind of historical and do that. So that might be a way to go about it too. I hope I'm understanding your question enough though, Peter. All right. Stephen Dela Cruz writes, John, you make it look easy. Learning a lot. Hashtag YouTube, hashtag John Campea. Thank you very much, man. And yeah, it's not easy. You guys can tell. I'll bring up this camera here again. There's a lot I'm trying to control all at once. Like between all the various images, the different screens, my audio, what you guys see, what I see, cutting between this and that, trying to come up with things for you guys to look at on the fly. It's taken some time to get pretty good at that. That part's not easy. That's why I don't recommend people starting out doing live stuff. Live is tough. I'm not going to lie. Live is tough, especially when you can't afford to pay somebody to be a full-time engineer and you're like the on-camera talent and the engineer all at the same time. But if I can do it, you can figure it out. One of my favorite YouTubers is actually a YouTuber calls himself the Everyday Dad. And he's like a technology camera, video kind of YouTube channel. And he's really great. He's called the Everyday Dad. And I don't know if any of you guys watch the Everyday Dad on YouTube, let me know in the comment section. Anyway, he's one of my favorite YouTubers. And he starts off his show every time saying, I'm the Everyday Dad, and if I can figure it out, you can figure it out. It's a great slogan. If I can figure it out, you can figure it out. And so yes, this whole system, it's not easy to do. But honestly, if I can figure it out and do it, believe me, you can figure it out and do it as well. So to steal a phrase from the Everyday Dad, thank you, Everyday Dad. Okay. Let's move on. Thank you for the kind words, Stefan, by the way. Appreciate that. All right. Charles writes, any good free video editing programs or websites? Ooh, well, I mean, listen, it depends on what your platform is. Like iMovie, I think is still free on the Mac, right? iMovie is great. Use that. On PC, what's a good free video editing? Oh, DaVinci Resolve. Yeah. DaVinci Resolve. Whatever computer you use, it's on Mac, it's on PC. I have recently switched from Premiere to DaVinci Resolve. It is an industry standard software and it's free. There is a pro version you can get for $300, but that's it. $300 and that's it. It is an excellent piece of software. I made the transition a couple of months ago over to DaVinci Resolve. It is, like I said, it is industry standard. It's becoming. It's amazing. And I use it. Ray uses it. A lot of people I know are I think even Rob is considering transitioning over to DaVinci Resolve. And like I said, it's free. So go and check out DaVinci Resolve. It's fantastic. All right, next up. Monish Corona writes, hello, I have a steady growing music channel. Excellent. I like to focus on original music, but I'm worried of alienating my audience who come for my covers. How would you navigate a change like this? Dude, that is a great question and one of the eternal struggles of content creators who want to try to go in a new direction. There is a phrase we use a lot called burn rate, which basically means this. When you do a transition, you have to understand there is going to be a burn rate percentage, right? That we will lose 30% of our viewers, but we think this change will ultimately more than make up for that 30% of viewer turnover. And that is scary for a lot of YouTubers. The idea of I'm going to alienate or burn rate 30%, 40%, 50% of my viewers once I make this kind of a change. But at the end of the day, you need to make the videos that you are passionate about. Because if you're not making the videos that you want to make and that you're passionate about, you are going to lose your joy very quickly. You're going to lose your joy very quickly. And when you're not doing the stuff that you're passionate about anymore, it's going to suck the life out of you. It really will. So not only do you have to consider burn rate, you have to consider quality of life, man. You got to consider quality of life. And if your joy is not in doing covers, fine. But I would suggest try to find a nice mix. You know, George Clooney, the great filmmaker, he says, you know, when I do my films, I do one for me, one for them. Talking about, I do one film that the audience would really get excited about, and then I do a film that I'm really excited about. Then I do a film that the audience would get really excited about, and then I do a film that I would get really excited about. So I would say continue to do a little bit of the cover stuff if that's getting you a lot of your audience, but maybe change your ratio. Maybe instead of 1-to-1, do 1-to-2, like do one cover and then 2 originals. And yes, you may have a little bit of a burn rate, but that burn rate may be completely worth it to keep you vitalized, keep you excited, keeping your joy level up for doing what you're doing, because that becomes contagious. Because I'll tell you what, your audience can tell if you're not having fun doing what you're doing, and then it becomes less fun for them. So yeah, there will be a burn rate. Try to find a good ratio and mix, but then do what makes you happy. So that's kind of my recommendation on that, Monish. So good luck on that, dude. All right. Orange Grow 55 writes, to use clips from movies/TVs, what is the proper way to give credit to the source? Honestly, the advice I always give is don't. I'd never, ever use clips on my YouTube channel. It's just too risky. There's just a lot more content claims that seem to get made when you use clips. And I remember I even was, you know, Chris Stuckman was having an issue with that once. And I remember even I was writing back and forth with him. I said, Chris, listen, dude, people watch your videos for you because you're great. They don't watch your video because you put in a clip of the movie. They watch it for you. I would just not use clips. Now, of course, he does still continue to use clips and it works for him. Whatever works for him is great. But I just think it is a better option to not use clips. Don't use clips. I would stick to using still images. It's just a lot easier to continue to use still images. Like if you watch my movies in 20, we don't use any clips. We just use still images. It's just that it creates a lot less problems with the YouTube algorithm. It just creates many, many less problems for the YouTube algorithm. Yes, there are ways around it, but I made a decision. You know, here's a story. Let me tell you a story. A number of years ago, back when I was still at AMC, the studio behind Machete 2 was the movie Machete 2 was coming out, and the studio contacted me and said, hey, if we give you an exclusive clip, will you show it on your movie talk show? And I'm like, do we have your permission to do that? There, yes, absolutely. You have our permission. We want you to show this clip during movie talk. I'm like, okay. So they give me this clip to play during movie talk to help promote their movie, Machete 2. I think it's called Machete Kills or something. 30 minutes after we're done the show, we got a copyright strike. Not a copyright claim, a full-blown copyright strike, which crippled our channel. We weren't able to live stream. We weren't able to monetize. We got a copyright strike. And I'm like, you mother effers, you asked us to put this on and we still got a copyright strike. And obviously they made a mistake on their end and all that kind of stuff. But even when we had the studio begging me to play their clip on our show, we still got a copyright strike. Now, they didn't do it on purpose. They weren't trying to be dicks, but it's just that I find more stuff can go wrong when you actually use clips instead of just using still images. So my recommendation, honestly, and other people may tell you other things, and I respect that. But if you're going to ask me, my recommendation is to use still images, stay away from using movie clips. It just makes it riskier. It just makes it riskier. Anyway, that's my take on it. All right, next up. Coop TV writes, my question is, what can I use to edit my video and sound? Also, I'm new to editing and I have a Yeti and I also hear a horrible echoing sound. Well, listen, I can't answer what your echoing sound is. if I am not right there with you or have you on the line with me to ask you, what is your input source listed as? What software are you getting the echo from? All that kind. I mean, I can't just give a general answer to that. I would say double check to make sure whatever software you're using, you're not creating an internal loop in the software. Just double check that. But as far as what you would use, I'll go back to what I was saying earlier. DaVinci Resolve, it's a terrific video editor. It's also got a built-in audio editor called Fairlight that's right in the program. That's great for audio editing. There's also a free one called, oh guys, come on, guys in the live chat, what is the free audio? Audacity, that's what it is. Sorry, before any of you guys had a chance to answer that. There's a great audio program called Audacity, but honestly, if you get DaVinci Resolve, you can do all of your audio editing and video editing all right within DaVinci Resolve. It's terrific. All right, next up. Kiefer Moriarty Short writes, John, you're the man watching since AMC. Thank you, Kiefer. I appreciate that, man. That's very kind of you, dude. All right, Comic Doctor writes, I have a Canon XA40. Oh, wow. Yeah. $3,000. Your setup looks better. Would my computer power and or crappy video card, capture card, be to blame? Thanks from Oshawa. It could be a lot of different things. Now, also, if I'm not mistaken, isn't the XA40 an older camera? Hold on a second. I believe it's an older camera. XA40. If I am not mistaken, I believe it's an older camcorder. There it is. Yeah, this is an extension of the Canon G. Like, they look very similar to the Canon, like the G and the G30 and stuff like that, except actually these are very, very similar cameras. It could be a couple of different things. Number one, double check what your output source is. Make sure that your output, isn't set to like 640, right? Make sure your output is set to full HD. All right, at least 1080. I don't believe you need to do 4K for YouTube, to be honest with you. I honestly think 4K on YouTube right now is a waste of time. You don't need to do 4K on YouTube. Not yet. That may change. That may change soon, but right now 1080. So make sure your output is set properly. Also, what are you using for your capture card? That could absolutely be it. Like, I've got a couple of different things. I have two different ways of capturing video on my computer. One, for my main cameras, I use a capture card that goes right into a PCI slot in my computer, right? So let me get this here. So now, not this one. This is a Blackmagic one that has one HDMI input. I actually have another card. The reason I don't have this in my computer right now is I have another card that is a Magewell card that has multiple HDMIs, and I capture it that way. Capture's fantastic. A good PCI capture card is great. It's a little expensive, but these do a great job. The other thing I do when I have more cameras than that is I use a little USB interface for what's called the Cam Link. So what happens is this end right here plugs into a USB port on your computer, and then this end you just plug the HDMI cable from your camera into, and it makes your computer see the camera as a video source. But then it all comes down to your computer. I mean, is your US bus being overloaded on its for bandwidth? That could be a problem. That could be a very big problem. Do you have a slow processor? Do you have enough? I mean, there could be so many answers to that. Obviously, the Canon camera, it's not a prime lens either. That's the other problem with that Canon camera, is that it's not a prime lens, but still you should get a good sharp image out of it. But again, so check the output settings on the camera. What are you using to input the camera signal into the computer? And then is the US bus being overloaded in its bandwidth? Do you have too many things plugged in there? And then the last bit in that chain could be, what is the software you're using to capture, right? Because you could be running a 1080 video out of the camera into a perfectly good capture card, whether it's an internal PCI card or a USB dongle, into a perfectly powerful computer, but your capture software, because this happens sometimes in OBS, you go to capture software and it says it's only capturing at 640, like less than HD quality, like not even 720. right? So there's 4 points of things to check. And again, it's impossible for me to give you a definitive answer because I'm not there with you, Comic Doctor, but I would check all 4 points. The camera output, the capture device itself, and check to see if the capture device has its own built-in software to checking its settings. Then how powerful is your computer, and are you overloading one USB bus? And then ultimately check to see your capture software to make sure it is capturing that source in its full 1080 glory. So I'd say check those 4 points. If it's not one of those, get some technical help, but hopefully that will help solve your problem, my friend. All right, next up, Paul Gilmore. Where are we at here? Paul Gilmore writes, why do I see shoddy, low-quality channels, views and subs higher compared to channels that have professional quality channels? Hope that made sense. Well, I mean, it could be a lot of different things, right? It could be many, many different things. It could be just that, hey, you know, we talked about Jeremy Jahns for a second ago, right? From a technical point of view, Jeremy Jahns' channel is, but he is just so good at what he does. He's just so entertaining and funny. And like you watch a Jeremy Jahns movie review, you're going to be entertained watching his movie reviews. He's just so good at it. Not a lot of technical stuff into it, but it doesn't need it, right? Some people just have very charismatic personalities. I mean, look, the world isn't fair. How come some incompetent boobs are senior managers at your company while much more intelligent people are much lower on the food chain at the company? Well, sometimes life's not fair. But yeah, it'll happen. For some reason, some people will just catch on for some way, somehow, and become bigger, and others don't. Now, look, quality will always improve. Like if the quality of my channel was lower than it is, I would have lower views than I do. And I'm perfectly happy with the views that I have. You know, I get 3 to 4 million views a month, and I'm perfectly happy with that. I don't feel the need to make reaction videos and hate videos to try to get more clicks and stuff like that. I know there's a lot of things I could do to get more views, but they're not the things I want to do. So I'm perfectly happy with 3 to 4 million views. I want to do 2-hour daily shows. That's what I like to do. But yeah, there will always be, you know, some sneaker, I'll see a sneaker YouTuber who's like amazing, but they'll only have half the amount of views that some dude who's totally terrible at it. But that's life. Sometimes that happens, man. Sometimes that happens. All right, next up. K Major writes, John, you're a good-looking dude. You're damn right I'm a good-looking dude. Anyway, me, not so much. I don't like being in front of the camera. How important is it to be in front of the camera? It's not completely vital. And let's face it, I'm an okay-looking guy. I'm not the best-looking guy in the world. But I mean, what I lack a little bit in my face physical appearance, I make up for with a very large penis. Just want to make sure that's public. Anyway, why did I say that? I don't know. It is not absolutely essential. For example, there is a YouTube channel that is completely dedicated. I'm sure you guys have seen this on YouTube. It's called what's it called? Your Daily Dose of Internet, right? Daily Dose of Internet. Hello, everybody. You've probably seen these videos, right? This is your Daily Dose of Internet. You never see the guy's face, or like hardly ever see the guy's face, right? Mr. Sunday Movies is a good example. Hardly ever, if ever, see his face. So there are channels you can do that. But normally, what I would suggest is on YouTube, people are looking to connect with you, and it's much easier to connect with people when they can see you. And being a good-looking guy or whatever is not the most important thing in the world. Listen, there are some tech channels with some very unattractive people. I won't name names. There are some tech channels that have some very, very unattractive people. But guess what? It doesn't matter. If they're passionate about their subject and they're pretty knowledgeable about their subject and they're relatable and they're able to leverage their strengths, it doesn't matter. So even though it's not completely essential for you to be on camera, like I said, Daily Dose of Internet, Mr. Sunday Movies, and others, so obviously you don't have to. But I believe you have a better chance of growing an audience if you do, because now you're connecting with people. And again, I wouldn't worry about what you look like. I really wouldn't. I mean, I always joke, but I mean, it's like, I've got a face made for radio. I've got a face made for radio. And yet here I am getting, 3 to 4 to 5 million views a month. I mean, right? So it's not essential. Build your community. It's easier to build your community if you do show your face. But again, if you're really uncomfortable, there are examples out there, like some that I've already mentioned, that prove it's not 100% necessary. I just think you give yourself a better chance if you do. But that's just me. You do what makes you feel comfortable, man. That's the important thing. All right, next up. Eric Benson writes, and sends in like a $50 super chat. Dude, thank you so much. He writes, no question. I just want to say, I love the work you and the crew do every day, day in, day out. Keep it up. Oh man, Eric, thank you so much. That is so, it's not just when writing in to say something nice, but you're writing in to be supportive of the channel. So I thank you very, very much, man. That's humbling. Thank you, dude. Very, very much. Thank you for the kind words. All right. Next up. Again, thank you, Eric. Dragon Ball Super Dope. I love that name. Writes, thoughts on repurposing 200 plus audio only podcast episodes for YouTube. I distribute on traditional podcast places and never got a handle on or firm plan for YouTube, but my pods were auto published to YouTube. Thanks. Listen, I don't know that there's a lot of benefit from it, but it can't hurt. Listen, the nice thing about YouTube videos, right? The nice thing about YouTube videos is that once they're there, you never have to look at them again. You never have to touch them again. They don't take any energy or effort, but they'll still accumulate views. You know what video I still get views on? One of my first YouTube videos. I had this thing where Jason Statham did a video for me when I was doing the movie blog, and it was to promote his movie Crank. That's how far back this goes. What year did Crank come out? Hold on a second. What year did Crank come out? We're going back a ways. 2006. Talking 15 years ago. Like one of my first YouTube videos. Jason Statham did this video for me where I got to write in some questions, and he said, hello, movie blog, because it was for the movie blog. And I sent in some questions, he answered the questions, whatever. It's a simple little nothing video. Guess what? I still get views on that video every day. So, yeah, if you've got a library of content, it's no harm in putting it up on YouTube. So I say go for it, dude. Absolutely go for it. All right. Good question, man. And that's great that you've got like that big of a library of that stuff. So that's great. All right. Next up, K Major just send in a super chat to be supportive. Thank you, K Major. Chef TikTok writes in, I love my MCU and want to start a channel, but it's hard to show movie clips without a copyright claim strike. Is there any way around it? No. But here's my question. Why do you need to show movie clips? Why do you need to show movie clips? You think people need to go to your YouTube channel to see clips? They don't need to go to your YouTube channel to see clips. They can go to Marvel's YouTube channel and see a hell of a lot more. So why do you need clips? You don't need clips to talk about Marvel. You don't need clips to do that. I never show clips, and I talk about Marvel a lot. So let me put it this way. If you feel you need clips to make your content watchable, then your content's not watchable. Forget about clips. You don't need clips. They're not necessary. What is necessary is that you make good content. And if you make good content, the clips are unnecessary. If you must use something for visual aids, do what I do. Use still images. So that's now, again, other people will have different points of view on that. And that's fine, but I find it to be absolutely unnecessary to use clips. And again, if you think you need them, then what you're saying is my content isn't good enough. People only want to see the clips. Well, then they don't need your YouTube channel for that. Stay away from clips. That's my advice. Again, other people may advise other things. I just suggest not using clips. You don't need them. If you have good content, you have good content. And again, people aren't going to come to your channel to see clips because they can go to the Marvel site for that. They don't need your site for that. Focus on what they need to come to your site for, which is you, your personality, your insight, your commentary, your discussion. That's why people need your YouTube channel. They don't need your YouTube channel for clips. They can go elsewhere for that, but they can't go elsewhere for you. So that's my advice on that. All right, next up. Movie Idiot writes, I've always wondered, 1 second, I got to readjust my pants. The jeans get a little tight in the groinal area. You guys know, you sit in jeans for too long, starts to build up that way. All right, Movie Idiot writes, I've always wondered how you get such a clean picture. I have a Sony a5100 and not as good as it could be to use GPU or CPU to process. Honestly, that's not the issue. Make sure you have a good capture card. And I would also recommend, if you have a A5100, that's an E-mount camera. That means the lenses I use are the exact same lenses you can use. I would recommend invest if you can. It's a little expensive. I would recommend these Sigma 30 millimeter lenses, $300. $300. Now, I'm not going to pretend that that's cheap, but it's cheap for what you get. Slap this baby on your camera. Again, double check the output settings of your camera. Make sure you got a good capture source, and then check your software to make sure it's receiving at the full thing. And I think you'd be very, very happy with the type of imagery that you're going to get. All right. Next up, Preppy Guy 1125 writes, hey, John, what scenes do you recommend to prepare for switching when starting a live scenes? Well, I mean, it all depends on what you're going to have. Like, I prep everything. I prep absolutely everything. That's why I spend 10 to 12 hours prepping a show. We have 20 to 40 different still images that we construct and build and put in place. We have our picture-in-picture shots. We have our audio hits. We have the views that go on the TV beside me. We get all this stuff all prepped and ready to go. But it all depends on what you need. But make sure everything is prepped. Preparation is everything. Again, too many YouTubers fail because they simply don't want to put in the work. They want to know what's the easy way. How can I cut corners as much as possible? And again, you can only do as much as the free time you have, but put all your effort into that free time. If you got 2 hours to put into a YouTube video, put 100% maximum effort into it and do all the prep. And whatever you can't prep, don't do. So yeah, again, it's hard to say specifically what scenes do you recommend to prepare. It's just prepare everything, whatever it is you need to go with your show. And if your show doesn't need a particular type of scene or images, then just don't do it. One of the things you'll notice about the John Campea Show is that I don't include stuff that doesn't need to be here, right? I basically do not include stuff that does not need to be here unless it's something that takes zero effort. So just something to keep in mind, but it's going to be unique to what it is your stream is and what kind of stream you're having. But when it comes to prepping, just make sure everything is prepped in advance. Everything is prepped in advance. All right, next up, Jake Gehring writes, hey, John, my cousin and I are wanting to do anime reactions and video game playthroughs. We have a quirky sense of humor, so we want to incorporate that into our videos. Should we rely on humor? Well, it depends. Are you actually funny? Right? Are you actually funny? If you're actually funny, then hell yes, lean into your humor. Hell yes, lean into your humor. If you guys are actually funny and you actually have people telling you that you are indeed funny, lean into your humor. All right, guys, listen. We're getting close to the end here, and we've been going for nearly 3 hours. This is way longer than I thought it was going to be. So if you guys will give me a moment, I need to go and use the bathroom. I have to go pee. Is that too much information? Too bad. I need to go pee. So if you guys will hold tight with me, give me 2 or 3 minutes, and I will be right back. Don't go anywhere. We'll keep this thing going, wrap this things up in just a couple of minutes. I'll be right back. All right, guys, and we are back. Thank you for your patience. I had to go take a leak. That's what happens when you go nearly 3 hours in a live stream. Okay, let's keep this ball rolling, shall we? As we head into the home stretch. By the way, guys, if you do have a question that you still want to get in, please send it in right now, because then I'm going to ask you guys not to send in any more questions, because I want to get through all of them, but we need to cut things off at a certain point here, because, again, we are 3 hours in. All right. We move on now. Next up, we got, and just back again to the humor thing. If you are actually funny, do the humor thing. It's going to be something that's unique to you and your stream. It's what's going to set you apart from a lot of other people. It's focusing on you and your strengths. So absolutely do that, Jake. Absolutely do that. All right. B Cunning writes, John, love the conversation. Thank you so much, man. Just bought a Canon M50 Mark II. Very good camera. Very, very good camera. I went with the Sonys, but if I didn't have the Sonys, I think I would go with that Canon M50 as well. And a Focusrite as well. Is there a specific type of lens I should be in the market for? Again, I would get a prime lens, a fixed prime lens. Me personally, now the M50s have a crop sensor, which is totally fine, because so do the Sony A6400s. They have a crop sensor as well. So that's perfectly fine, but you got to make sure you keep that in mind when you're getting a prime lens for it, and you got to make sure you get it for the right mount. But you know, the camera will tell you what kind of mount the M50 lens takes. So I would say don't go too wide. So I would say 30 mil. See if you can find a prime lens, a fixed focal length lens of about a 30 mil for something like that. That should be a nice. Now, if you need your camera a little bit closer, you're going to want a nice wider kind of angle lens. So that's when you might want to look at like a 15 millimeter or something like that. But anything like that 15 to 30, I think you'll be good. And I think you'll really, really like. And you're going to want to look for a nice large aperture. And aperture number is a little bit different. Normally, the bigger number is bigger, right? Like 40 is bigger than 30, duh. But in aperture, the bigger the aperture, the smaller the number. So you're going to want to get a nice wide aperture to get like this nice, like when you look here, like you see how I get kind of like the nice bokeh effect. I get the blurry background. And watch, if I get even closer, look how much more the background blurs. So, okay, there you go, right? So if you get a nice wide lens, you want a nice small aperture number. Say like I've got a 1.4 aperture on this lens. So if you can get anywhere from like a 1.8 down to like a 1.2 aperture, very good. I think you're going to love the nice, sweet, buttery look that gives you. And the Canon the M50s are really nice cameras, man. And I think you can get those for like $500 or $600. So they're a really nice economical price point too. So good on you for getting that camera, my friend. All right. Let's see. Where are we? That was B Cunning. All right. Skellywags writes, cheers for the advice, John. Don't worry. I'll be sure to go back and watch those movies in 20 vids. Skelly you later. Yeah, because nobody else did. Nobody else did watch them, but I appreciate that, Skellywags. All right, next up. Eduardo San Miguel writes, that says like a $25 super chat. Thank you, dude, for that support. After posting a few unboxing and gaming videos, I found out that I love making videos and looking forward to taking a course in filmmaking. Excellent stuff. Should I go for it or continue to try getting a job in the IT field? I'm 27. Okay, listen, Eduardo, this is a huge question and not one that some idiot on YouTube can answer when only knowing one paragraph of information about you. All right? And anybody who does say what you should do doesn't know what they're talking about. The question of, should I abandon career to pursue dream? All right. That is such a massive question with massive ramifications and really big pieces of information that you need to have. For example, how steady is your job? What kind of financial responsibilities do you have as a person? Do you have kids? Do you not have any dependents? Do you have money saved up in the bank that could carry you for a little while? Like I know for me, when I made the decision to quit my job at the law firm and just go full time with my blog, I made sure I had money saved away in the bank so that if everything went to crap, I at least would be able to live off my savings for a while to make it work. So there are and then the question is like, do you think you can make a go out of it? In doing those types of videos. Are you in a position where if you fail at it, you can still be okay? Are you in a position that if you fail at it, you'll easily be able to get back into your IT job? I mean, again, there are so many determining factors that go into answering a question like that. It's one I can't give an easy answer to. I will say this. If you love doing these videos, and if you have some money saved away, and if you don't have any dependents that rely on you and your income, a wife, kids, whatever, and if your job is the type of job that you think you would easily be able to get back into, like I knew if my blogging thing didn't work, I would easily be able to get back into the legal profession. So if all those things, I would say, yeah, man, if you're really passionate about it, give it a shot. Give it a shot. But again, it's very difficult for me to say stuff like that when I don't know you personally and I don't know the specifics of your circumstance. But yeah, like I said, if you got money saved away, it's easy to get back into your career if you want to. You don't have any dependents right now and you're really passionate about it, then yeah, I would say go for it. But again, there's a million different factors in that. So please, please, please take what I just said with a massive grain of salt, brother. All right. But good luck to you, Eduardo, whichever way you decide to go, my friend. All right. Next up. Let's see. Sam Phillip writes, trying to get my own animation channel going. Nice. Like you do animation? That's incredible. Making animations on my favorite software and chat with people while I do it. Thanks for the tip. Dude, that sounds awesome. I love that idea. Like, I love like people like James, who the box office artist who does this stuff. I mean, him doing live while I think that's great. Actually watching somebody doing animation, I think that's a cool. Now, obviously that's not going to appeal to everybody, but neither is a YouTube channel about the nets. But you would have a very specific, really nicely clear defined demographic. That could be really cool. I mean, I'm not guaranteeing it'll work, but I mean, I think it's a great idea. I like that idea, Sam. You go for that. All right. Duroc Media writes, rarely get to watch your streams live due to working at the same time. Dude, I think a lot of people are in the same boat, man, but thank you for that. But as I used to super chat a long time ago in the never mind. Super chat to say something nice. You, Rob, and the community rock. Stay filthy and sweaty. Oh, dude, thank you so much. That's so kind of you. And yeah, listen, I know that the time of day that I do my live streams, 10 a.m. Los Angeles time, 1 p.m. New York time, most people are at work or in school. Honestly, I'll be honest with you, Duroc, I have no idea how the hell I'm able to survive. I really should be doing my live streams when people are not in work or not at school. But somehow, some way, I get a couple of thousand people watching live. I don't know how that happens. I've often wondered about changing my time, like maybe streaming at 4 p.m. Los Angeles time, 7 p.m. East Coast time. I've thought about it. I don't know if that would be a good move or a bad move. I don't know how high my burn rate would be. We were talking about burn rate a little bit earlier. I don't know how high my burn rate would be. But I mean, but then not only local time, but how does it affect my international friends? Like people who watch in India. We got a lot of people in India watch our show, or the UK, or, you know, or other places in Europe. Like how does that affect it? I mean, I don't know, but it's a question I always struggle with, Duroc. It is. But again, thank you, man, for sending in the kind words. I appreciate that, dude, very much. All right. Jason Bronson writes, do videos need to be monetized to make money off of them? If so, how do you get them monetized? Okay. So the best thing for me to tell you to do is go to YouTube, quick search how to monetize videos. There are so many very good explanations and walk you through the process of how to monetize your videos. It's actually very, very simple of a process to do. Now, there's other ways to monetize other than YouTube's ads, right? I monetize the John Campea business, if you will, through several different sources. Yes, our main source of income is the ad revenue from YouTube. That's our main source. But we also are supported by our viewers through submitting super chats and tips. We also have our Patreon supporters who support us. We also do some individual sponsorships that we do with companies. We also do get revenue from our podcasts. Like I take the daily John Campea Show and I put it up in a podcast feed as well. And we make, I mean, not a ton of money, but we make about $100 a day just off the podcast. And that doesn't even take any real effort on my part. Like we take the audio from the show, we edit the audio a bit to make it sound a little bit nicer. We render it out, upload it to the podcast server, and then publish it as a podcast. And, we make about $100 a day. Anywhere between, in a given month on average, anywhere between like $1,500 to $3,000 a month on the podcast. So the key is diversify. The YouTube ad revenue is just one way. To get it. But again, it is a great way to do it. It's a very easy way to do it. Just search up search on YouTube, quick getting monetized on YouTube. You'll find 1,000 different videos that all give some really good information. And like I said, you're going to find that it's easier than you think. Okay. We move on now. Some people are saying $100 days is a lot. I mean, it is a lot, but it doesn't even cover Ray's salary. I mean, you understand, like, I'll let you behind the curtain a little bit. So for the year of 2020, we're getting ready to do our taxes and everything. For the year of 2020, like I paid over $100,000, like over $100,000 in 2020, just in salaries. That includes like full-time and part-time and occasional people like fact checker Jonathan and, Aaron and Ray and Rob and, paying salaries and paying things like that. I've paid over $100,000 in 2020. So yes, $100 a day, $1,500 to $3,000 a month, from the podcast feed. Yes. Yeah, that's good. But it doesn't even cover 1/3 of what I need to pay in salaries to people. So yes, but hey, it is still good. I mean, that's $100 a day, anywhere between $75 to $125 a day for that I wouldn't have otherwise, right? Doing the podcast feed. Again, the key is diversify. If your channel gets big enough, and don't worry about any of this crap until your channel gets big enough. But if you do get to that point, don't just rely on YouTube ad revenue. Diversify a little bit, whether it's from Patreon or whether it's from individual deals or whether it's from a podcast or whether it's from merchandising or whether it's from whatever. Find ways to diversify so you're not just reliant on one thing. So that's my best advice. Anyway, next up, where'd we go? Oh, there we are. Okay. Scott Free writes, any advice on getting sponsors? Dude, I'm the worst person to ask for that. I'm terrible at getting sponsorships. Most of my sponsors that I have used, and I've turned down a lot of sponsors because it's like, I don't use that product and I never would use that product, so I can't do that as a show. But when I have done little sponsorships on the show, it's usually because the sponsors come to me. Honestly, this is true. This is 100% truth. Me getting sponsors is like how I've gotten women in my life, including my wife, Ann. I don't know how to approach them. The only girls I've ever dated are the ones who've come after me and made the first move because I have no game. When I was single, dudes, I had zero game. No game. My game was none. Behold my game and see verily that there is none. I had no game at all in the world. None in the world. So, but sponsorships is the same way. I have no idea how to go get sponsors. I just, my channel got big enough that I started to have sponsors approaching me and offering me and sending proposals to me about sponsorships. And sometimes they're decent, sometimes they're pathetic, but I'm not the right guy. I'm not a salesperson. I don't know how to go out and get sponsorships. Just like when I was single, I had no idea how to go out and get a date. I always had to wait for the girl to make the first move. And fortunately, and reached out and asked for my contact information. Not bad, huh? Anyway, I think I just lucked out. All right. Anyway, next up. Where'd I go? I lost my place. Oh, here we go. Okay. Sergio Lopez writes, you mentioned your YouTube representative tells you it's not ideal to do 2 to 3 hour live streams. Should one look into getting a rep and judge your videos? Well, here's the thing. It's almost impossible to get a YouTube rep. YouTube has to reach out to you and say you have qualified to have a personal YouTube rep. And then that YouTube rep will work with you to help develop your channel, and, you know, they'll answer some questions for you and blah, blah, blah. And I've been lucky to have a YouTube rep. I found them very helpful, even though they don't totally get what it is I'm trying to do on my channel. And that's fine. I've still found them very, very helpful, but it's it's one of those things where they need to reach out to you. Once your channel gets to a certain size, they will. They will once you get to a certain size. Okay. Next up, we've got Mukbang Reviews, who writes, I really liked your documentary about trailers. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate you checking that out. But was curious about the difference in producing something like that relative to a daily YouTube show. Equipment, planning, editing, etc. Well, listen, I don't want to spend time going into what you need to do to make a documentary. Like, we're here to talk about YouTube and stuff like that. But yes, making a documentary was a very different experience than doing a daily YouTube show. It was a very, very different experience. And the amount of planning that has to go into it, the amount of scheduling, the amount of logistics. I mean, we're dealing with people that we have to arrange interviews with from all over the place and trying to nail down when those interviews can happen. Not to mention, a lot of it was done while we're in the midst of a pandemic. The way you shoot and edit things become different, then the legal process becomes different. It's a totally different ballgame. It's a totally, totally different ballgame. And I appreciate you asking. I do, but it is very different from the daily grind of a YouTube show. But again, I don't want to waste everybody's time talking about making a documentary, and what we're here to do is talk about YouTube. But I do appreciate the question, Mukbang. I really do. All right, next up, Sergio Lopez writes, one of two. I'm an apprentice electrician, nice, and would love to teach people my years of experience and shortcuts. If I do something frowned upon or not legal, could one get sued with the video being evidence? Maybe a ridiculous question, but in the trade, sometimes shorts are needed to satisfy clients. I mean, it depends. Here's the thing. And again, do not take this as legal advice, all right? Let me be very clear. Do not take this as legal advice in any way, shape, or form. If you, as an electrician, suggest somebody do something a certain way, and something bad happens as a result of them relying on your advice to do something a certain way, you could be liable. Now, again, every single situation is different and unique. Absolutely. Every single situation is different and unique. But generally speaking, you do expose yourself to some risk if you make unsound recommendations and somebody else relying on those recommendations has something bad happen, whether they get injured or they get fired or whatever, you could be exposed to liability. So again, every situation is unique and every situation is different. And I'm not saying that as a blanket statement. And again, I am not giving legal advice, but I would just say to you, basically, be careful what you do, because yeah, you could be exposing yourself to some liability. So just be careful with that. Be careful with that. Other than that, I love the idea, if you're an electrician, to do a YouTube channel about being an electrician. I mean, there's some really good stuff you could do there, but yes, you do have to be careful about what it is you're recommending people do. All right, next up, we've got Veronica, who writes, Mrs. Voltron Prime here. I actually enjoy your show too. Thank you. Okay, because some Voltron Prime wrote in the other day saying he loves the show and mentioned his wife. Thank you, Veronica. I appreciate that very much. A couple that watches the John Campea Show together stays together. Forget all that other stuff. The couple that watch the John Campea Show together, Those are the couples that stay together, my friends. All right. Next up. Let's see. Okay. Jonathan Corky writes, fan since before Man of Steel. Thank you so much, dude. Mostly do hockey content. Nice. Kane specifically. Boo. No, I'm just kidding. Kane specifically. But how do you get people in a niche market? Am content with this as a hobby without it being my job. Well, I mean, listen, obviously the best way, I can only tell you my experience. The way I grew was that a couple of movie fans came across my blog. They enjoyed what they found on my blog. They told a couple of other people about it and shared a couple of links through their social media. And it's what they call organic growth. But if you do something based on the Canes, right? And you've got a couple of Canes fans and they really enjoy your content, when they're talking to other Canes fans saying, hey, if you're a Canes fan, you should check out this YouTube channel. That's how you get organic growth. But again, this comes back to make sure your content is so good. Like, this is why I say, don't worry about how do you get your viewers. Worry about making your content great. Because if you make your content great, nothing is guaranteed, but you increase your chances of organic growth exponentially if you really focus on making your content great. Do not focus on how to grow. Focus on making your content great, because if your content is great, it becomes a hell of a lot easier to grow your channel. Again, nothing is guaranteed. You can make the greatest channel in the world and maybe nobody watches it, but your chances increase exponentially of organic growth if it is, because if your content is great, your viewers will talk to other people about it and will share links to other people about it and will spread the word. And good things can happen, man. Good things can happen. All right, next up. Zolio writes, if I'm pronouncing that right, Zolio writes, are we at Zolio or did I skip somebody? No, that was Jonathan. Now we're at Zolio writes, John, if you're doing movie reviews, can't you use clips like trailer footage under fair use laws? I'm surprised Stuckman has issues doing reviews only. Again, technically you should be able to, but the problem is the YouTube algorithm can copyright claim you. People can like manually copyright claim you. And now you got to get into a legal fight. Is it worth it? I say no. It's not worth it. Because yeah, technically speaking, if you are doing a review of a movie and you're giving education, commentary, and criticism on a piece of media, you should be allowed under fair use to use a piece of that media that you are directly giving commentary to. The problem is that never stops copyright owners from filing copyright claims on your videos. And then the onus is on you that you need to fight it. I ask the question again, why do you need to have clips? Clips does not make your review any better. I'm just convinced of that. If you think that viewers are only coming to your channel to see the clips, then they're coming to your channel for the wrong reason. And they don't need your channel for the clips. They can just go watch the trailer. They don't need to see the clips in your thing. Just use still images. It's just much, much easier. It's much less problematic because yes, you're right. Technically, you should be able to do that. It's just that you open yourself up to headaches that you don't necessarily need. And that's why I always encourage people, don't bother using the clips. Clips aren't necessary. They're not, especially if we're talking specifically about movie review and stuff, clips are not necessary. So you can do it. Just be ready that it may cause far more headaches than what it's worth. And that's just my take on that. All right, next up, Danny Sanchez writes, sending love to you and the John Campea Show crew. Watch every day. Thank you, Danny. I appreciate that very much, man. Next up, Ifran Dagman writes, just sends in a super chat twice, man. Just to be supportive. Thank you so much. And guys, that'll do it. It's taken 3 hours and 20 minutes, but we've gotten through all the questions you guys had. Hey, listen, guys, do me a favor. Fire me off an email. if you're so inclined, at john@thejohncampeashow.com, and just let me know if you found this helpful. I hope you did. Maybe we didn't get around to everything. Maybe you have more questions. Maybe we should do another one of these. I don't know. Hopefully you found that helpful, and it will encourage you and invigorate you to try doing something on YouTube yourself, hopefully with realistic expectations all at the same time. So I hope this was useful. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know. I had a good time doing it. I hope you had a good time listening, and I hope you found a few tips and whatever along the way that will help you in your journey in doing a blog, a podcast, a YouTube channel, or whatever. All right, guys. Hey, don't forget, the John Campea Show returns tomorrow at 10 a.m. Los Angeles time. Make sure you come by and join us for that. Also, guys, don't forget that tomorrow night at 4 p.m. Los Angeles time, we're going to be doing our Falcon and Winter Soldier pregame show. And then on Friday, of course, we're going to be doing our Falcon and Winter Soldier episode open spoiler discussion. So make sure you join us for that as well. Guys, this has been a blast. Thanks a lot for being here. My name is John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.